All right.
How long is it going to go, you? I don't care.
Well, I think a few hours, but it depends on your answers. As I said, some people are shorter than others.
Yeah.
Snitsky didn't give as much detail, but it all depends. Do you want any coffee, by the way?
No, thank you.
You got your soda, right? You're good?
All right. And I am editing it, so if you need to take a break or anything.
You still working at the gym?
Yeah. Can you say something? I just want to...
Hey, what's going on, Hannibal, this morning? What's happening? ESS Promotions, what's going on?
I'm just going to
Billy Jack.
move... oh, sorry. I'll put this right on there so it picks it up a little bit better.
I just got over pneumonia a week ago. I lost, I'm down to 210. I lost 50 pounds, you know. And,
well, that's not a bad thing.
Nah.
You look leaner than last time.
you know.
So we'll do the opening to it after, but I'll jump into the questions now.
You got it, man.
We got 3 camera shoot here.
Yes.
I'm gonna start with these on and take them off, okay?
Okay. This is Hannibal here from thehannibaltv.com, and I'm with WWE former superstar Billy Jack Haynes, who was also in WCW, many other top promotions. How are you doing today?
So good, Hannibal. How are you, buddy?
Not bad. You got a different haircut.
Well, you know, I've been reading where a lot of people think that this hair is not real, but I just kind of wanted to wash it and show everybody that it really is mine. That's the Indian and Italian in me, I guess.
Well, to start this off, do you want to tell us a little bit about your childhood? I know you grew up in Oregon.
Yeah, I had a pretty rough childhood. A lot of people do, and I left mine away for 60. It was about 60 years before I said anything about it. A lot of people that are abused young, they don't say much about it. Mine happened at age 4 through, I believe, 8, maybe possibly 9, and it was the worst you could probably think of, imagine, sexually and physically, and it happened away from home, and it done a lot of damage to me mentally growing up.
Was that through family or a friend of the family?
It was through my mother dating another guy, and the guy was a politician, a mayor of Portland, Oregon, and it went on for quite a while. And finally, both my mother and my uncle, when I was 15, were both murdered. So that's where my life really took off into the wild side. But there was 2 politicians that were involved. It's tough to name names because I'm doing an autobiography right now on that, and I am going to name names because I'm not going to go to my grave with it. I was going to go to my grave with it, but I'm not now.
Did you ever see wrestling when you were younger?
Yeah, I did. I grew up on Portland wrestling, and my favorite was Tough Tony Bourne and Lonnie Main, Dutch Savage. There was a lot of guys. Don Leo Jonathan from Canada. He was one of the big guys that came in and wrestled Andre the Giant when I was young. I was born and bred into the business. Now, if you want to go back to where I was born, I can take you back to where the boxing actually started. I mean, this is quite complicated, and maybe, we didn't understand or communicate it last time, but I can communicate it this time, so you might say, well, my stories are a little bit far-fetched. this will, I think, really verify where I come from, you know. Can we get into that?
Sure.
Okay, my mother at 22 years old had already had 2 children, and this was in 1952. I wasn't even born yet, I wasn't even conceived. And she was dating a 16-year-old named Harold Pillman, Willie Nelson. You can look him up. He had won 186 matches out of, he only lost 3 amateur fights. So there was an opportunity that sees Rocky Marciano in 1952 had just won the world title from Jersey Joe Walcott in New York. And we were out here in Oregon. This guy was so highly rated, so highly ranked, that Al Will, the manager of Rocky Marciano, and his manager and also his trainer wanted this guy so bad that they flew my mother and him out to New York for 2 days. The thing with Vince McMahon is this: Jess McMahon was still alive. This was at Madison Square Garden, is where they first met. My mother and this boxer from Portland that she was dating met Al Will, the manager of Marciano, Charlie Goldman, the trainer who had 300 professional fights, liked him, and then Jake LaMotta came in and worked with him. And he pretty much beat the shit out of Jake LaMotta. I mean, at 16 years old. I mean, that was fascinating, you know. And so they wanted him to sign really, really good. The guy who came out was a guy named Lenny Montana, who is a professional wrestler, good friends with Eddie Graham in Florida. So during that time, talking to my own mother, before she died, before she was murdered, was she had an affair with Vince Sr. and also Lenny Montana, who's a professional wrestler. That's why I got into both sports. So I don't know who my biological father is, and it's always been bugging me my whole life, you know. And I'm 66. I want to find it out before I pass away. That's why I wanted to get Vince's DNA with the Chris Benoit thing. And he's not going to, I guess, give it to me. But he knows. You know, I've talked to him personally about it when I was in the WWF. You know, he knows all about his grandfather, Jess. He knows about his dad, Vince Sr. His dad died May 24th, 1984. The same day my mother died, May 24th, was murdered 1969, 15 years before Vince Sr. died. And so we got into a little bit, we talked about it once, and we never did really talk about it again until something later on happened. But that's it. So when I was conceived, I never knew who my father was growing up. All I had this rape when I was 4 to 9. And then my dad, who raised me, was a full-blown juvenile diabetic, a great guy, the greatest guy I've ever met in this world, as a matter of fact, and I never wanted to hurt him. So there we are.
And how did you get into boxing yourself?
I was, my uncle was a gangster in Portland with the very same guy that was abusing me. He didn't know it, because if I would have told my uncle would have absolutely beat the guy to death, killed the guy. But I didn't tell anybody about it. And it got me to a point to where I was I hated to even travel anywhere. I hated to go anywhere away from my dad. And when you're 4, 5, 6, you're real vulnerable that way. So my mother would wait till he went to work and then take me to the hotel or whatever. First time I ever got abused, I'll tell you this, it was in a hotel. My mother had me in the bathtub. I was 4 years old. And then in the hotel like we're at right now, and I heard some screaming in the bed. I come out and I had these toys that they put in the bathtub, and I come out, of course, naked, and wondering what my mother's screaming about. And the guy that she was having the affair with, the politician, reached up and grabbed me by the one arm, picked me up. He'd been drinking, picked me up and threw me into the bathtub and broke my left arm and fractured the back of my skull. I almost drowned. My mother pulled me out. She still, at that time, didn't do anything about it. He took a cigarette. I got burns. He used to burn cigarettes on me here. I've got all kinds of burns here. And so we went back home, and my mother told me this. We had these stairs that went straight down. She told me that don't tell your dad anything about this. You tell him that you fell down these stairs, and if you don't say that, I'm going to push you down the stairs. So I was terrified at 4, and then she took me to the emergency room, where I got a cast, and I got taken care of. And I told my dad I fell down the stairs. And my dad loved me to death, and my mother, for some reason...
So that's not your natural dad, that's the main guy your dad was dating, and it's this guy that she had the affair with that did that. That's correct.
No, my natural dad loved me to death. Not my natural dad, the dad who raised me.
Yeah.
You know?
So you got older and you started doing boxing, I guess.
Well, that happened before my mother actually passed away, and my uncle. I went down to the gym to work out some anger issues, and at 13, I started sparring down there at Mount Scott Community Center. Mount Scott Community Center had like 9 national champions, and they had the Knott Street Community Center in Portland, Oregon, had like 6 national champions. Oregon's known for its boxing, you know, and so is California. Just like it is here in Philly and New York. Yeah. In fact, I was really pissed off about the statue with not having Joe Frazier's statue here. And also know, you know, George, you're from Toronto, right?
The Toronto area, you could say, yeah.
George Chuvalo, the best fight ever that I saw was Jerry Corey and George Chuvalo. Remember, it stopped I don't think it should have been stopped because it was a great fight. But Corey went down, he said he stayed down too long. Remember?
Yeah.
Remember that fight? Anyway, it's just, the boxing, it came natural to me, you know. I was just a natural fighter. But, you know, I got the crap beat out of me the first couple times, and I liked it. I just liked it. Then when I was 15, I got set up with a guy named Andy Kindle, who was a #1 rated light heavyweight, and I was at a store, and I wanted this guy to buy us some beer. I was kind of like with this little mini gang, and wanted this guy to buy some beer, and he wouldn't do it. So me being the tough guy of the gang, you know, I hauled him up and smashed him in the face, you know. He got out of the car and we got into a fight. Andy Kindle comes driving up and he sees this. He invites me to the 3-star gym, which is North Portland. I was only 15. So I went in there thinking I could beat the crap out of Andy Kindle, a #1 ranked light heavyweight who fought Bob Foster for the world title. I landed some good shots, and then he just teed off on me and just beat the living crap out of me, man. And that's how I learned, by getting you learn by getting the shit beat out of you. You don't learn by beating the shit out of somebody else. People. That's correct. And I took a beating for about a year. I liked the beating, I guess because I was abused. I think I deserved it or something. I don't know. But I continued with it. And then up till 15, my mother ratted on my uncle because he was into the drug cells, going into Lewiston, Idaho with a truck, and he come back and always put a $100 bill in my pocket. Don't tell your dad, because there's my dad's only real brother. So this was my uncle, Uncle Red. And then for some reason he was murdered in Lewiston, coming back from driving the truck. He got murdered here in Lewiston coming back. They were found with a truck wreck, but all the drugs were taken out, so somebody ratted him out.
He was transporting drugs?
He was transporting iron, it looked like, but he had the drugs in between it.
Okay.
You know, and so he was hiding the drugs. It was pharmaceutical drugs. It wasn't like cocaine or any of that. And so he was murdered along with his partner. So they came knocking at the door, and they asked if my uncle was there. I answered the door, and I was 15, and my dad had just got off work. My mother was still there, and they said, maybe come in and talk to you. Your Uncle Red live here, Red Nealon Haynes. He said, yeah, but he's not here right now. Because we come in and talk to you, blah, you know how that goes. And said he was killed today in a truck wreck. But I knew that couldn't be true, you know. But he was murdered. And so my dad fell to his knees as he came around. That was his only brother. He had no idea about what was going on with the drugs. And after the funeral, my dad didn't go back to work. The day my dad went back to work, It was the day I went back to school. I was at Franklin High School. And the day I went back to school, I came home because I was not feeling good. When I came home, the guy that my mother was having an affair with and the guy that burnt me with his cigarettes was there, was still mayor.
What was the town he was mayor of?
You know, this is a tough call. You know, this is a tough call, but it was Portland, Oregon, and his son knows what's going on. I think, you know, he's still alive. He was a 32-year district attorney, and he just retired 2012. And this is where all these homicides and stuff come in my life, in his autobiography and so forth. I'm going to be doing, and it's basically, you know, Hannibal. It's almost too hard to believe, to conceive that a man could go through this kind of life, but I really did. And then my mother came at me, and I slapped her alongside the head because she kept punching at me, you know. And
why was she attacking you, though?
Drugs.
Okay.
You know, prescription drugs, and I just said, "Mom, I know you ratted him out. I know you ratted Uncle Red out." Because there was two different oppositions. There was Fred Peterson, who was a former mayor, and then there was Mayor Terry Shrunk, and they were battling it out on who was going to be who. And there was a guy named Jim Elkins, Big Jim Elkins, that was there. At 14, I started stealing lawnmowers for him, so I started going down that wrong path too. And I didn't tell you that in the boxing. That's why I got into boxing too. So I started stealing things.
So who were you stealing for?
Jim Elkins.
Okay.
Big Jim Elkins.
What was he?
He was a crime boss. He came from Arizona, and he was a crime boss that worked against. Elkins was with the former mayor in 52 to 56, and then the new mayor, Mayor Shrunk, was against him. So they had a rival gang.
So these were like under the table deals that these two mayors had with the different crime heads.
Yeah,
okay.
And my uncle was involved with, I think he was doing both. I think he got caught because he was doing both. But my mother was having the affair with the mayor, Terry Shrunk.
Yeah.
So that's...
What year was that about?
That was 1950, well, before I was born. So
Okay.
he used to be a Multnomah County sheriff before he was mayor. So 40, I think probably 1950, he started in 1951.
And what was the year that you started stealing lawnmowers about when you were in high school?
14 when I was a freshman.
Okay, so that would have been in the late 60s, early 70s?
68.
Okay.
Yeah, he was murdered. They ended up murdering Fred Elkins. I don't know who did it. Could have been my uncle, could have been Terry Shrunk, because Terry Shrunk then, at that point, came back to my side and was on my side. And I was so fucked up in the head that I didn't know who to go to at that time.
So you were continuing boxing. Did you ever turn pro?
Never turned pro. Wanted to turn pro. Here's what happened. Now both my mother passed away the 24th, May 24th, 1969. My uncle was April 18th, 1969. They died 5 weeks apart, and both were murdered. I thought that my slap to the head did it. I went back upstairs and I heard a car door shut. I heard some people talking. I'm pretty sure it was Terry Shrunk. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure. And I came back down, and my mother was acting really weird. I put her on the couch, and as I did, there was blood on my hand. So I think they injected her with something in the buttocks, and she died 3 days later. So that was May 21st, 69. She died May 24th, 69. I was supposed to go to the fight May 24th, and you can have this verified. May 24th, 1969 was the Andy Kendall-Bob Foster fight in New York. And I was going to go round trip to watch that fight because Andy Kendall took me under his wing. And he lost in the 4th round TKO. But I never got to go to the fight because my mother died in the same day of the fight, May 24th, 1969. And you can verify that.
And what was the official cause of her death?
They said she had a brain aneurysm, but there was no autopsy. So that made me feel like maybe the slap to the head done something. But I knew she was injected. I think what happened, she was injected with succinylcholine, and it paralyzed her. And she died like 2 or 3 days later. So I've done some research on succinylcholine. And that's what it does. It paralyzes your body and you're in kind of a dead state, but you're not dead.
What was her job? She seemed to be the type that you were mentioning. She's with a bunch of different guys, and she was on various prescription medications. Did she have a stable job, or did she kind of go from job to job?
My mother, what I remember of my mother, and I try to say, she was a beautiful woman. I mean, she was an absolutely gorgeous woman. 5'9", 120 pounds. You know, she was definitely that's why the men went wild over her. And but she had a problem. I think she was abused when she was a kid. I think that's what the problem was. And her father, this is another thing that's can be verified, is the fact that my mother's maiden name is Shirley Mae Frank. When she married my dad, it was Shirley Mae Frank Haynes. Otto Frank, now Otto Frank is the Jewish German over there, the daughter of Anne Frank in Germany in World War II in Auschwitz. So I found out that my grandfather always stayed across the street and never could figure out why. But he fought in World War I in America in the war. And Otto Frank, his second cousin, fought for Germany against the United States in World War II. Was a daughter of Anne Frank, was the father of Anne Frank and Edith Frank. So they were interrelated to us. She wrote a diary, Anne Frank diary, and my grandfather told me about it before he had all these strokes. And that's the reason why he had to stay across the street, because I guess he was Jewish, or there was some kind of a problem there. And then I remembered that it's so complicated to bring this whole story together, Hannibal, because I got to have this fixation memory, and I've been beaten in the head so many times. I've had a lot of it beat out of me, but some things you never forget. Anne Frank was killed in Auschwitz, in the Jewish Auschwitz, when they killed 6 million Jews, along with Margot and Edith, her sister and mother. And they let Otto go. He wrote the Anne Frank diary, and he died 1980, I think it was 80. I think he died in 1980.
So you never actually had your pro fight, you said, because your mother died, and that kind of derailed you. At what point were you brought in to spar with the pro boxers that you've sparred with?
No problem. My memory gets good here. Okay, when I was 16 years old, now after my mother died and my uncle died, there was a cop, and I wish I could remember his name, but he was a black cop who was friends with Terry Shrunk, and he used to do the news, and but I think he was there at the time that my mother was killed, and I think he had a hand in it. And so I ran into him when I was 16, and we got into it, and I beat the living shit out of him, and he was a man, grown man. And so at that time, Terry Shrunk, who was still the mayor of Portland, told me that I'm going to go to JDH, juvenile, or I can go in the military. So he was calling the shots, not even my dad, who raised me.
Right. Was that because was the cop in uniform when you had that fight? Or
Yes.
Was it, okay.
Yes, he was. No, he wasn't in uniform, but he was still a cop.
Okay.
Unless he retired in '69, I'm not sure, but he was a former cop,
But you're
out of
getting in
uniform.
some trouble for the assault, I guess.
Yes.
Okay.
So I was going to go to JDH because I was under 18. I was 16, almost 17, or go in the military. So I go in the military. I'm doing real good because my dad who raised me is a World War II veteran, William Abbott Haynes, Sr. So he was real proud of me. I went into the military. I did real good. I went to Fort Lewis, basic training, went to the infantry division. I went to the armor division. I was going to go over to Vietnam. I was going to fight. I wanted to fight. And I got into a fight prior to it, going on leave with the sergeant. And there it is. I got a Article 15. I went home, told my dad. He said, go back, take care of it. So I went back. They didn't call me on roll call in Fort Riley, Kansas. So I panicked again at 17. I was only 17 when I went in the military. And so I went back home and I went AWL for 9 months, which was really degrading to my dad. And my dad was very disappointed in me. And finally, he said, listen, turn yourself in. He says, if you don't, you're going to regret it. So he took me down to the police station on Oak Street in Portland, Oregon. I think I just turned 18, and I was sent down. They come pick me up from Fort Lewis, drove me down to Fort Lewis, Washington, 150 miles, where I spent 6 months in the military stockade. And my dad would come down and see me every weekend, and I did this thing called Big Red, chop wood, and I got a day off for every day I did it. So I only served 3 months in the military stockade, and I got an undesirable, not dishonorable discharge, which made my dad feel a little bit better. But that's that fiasco. Then I came home, and I was just turning 19, and that's when I decided to get into the pro game. And that's the time that Norton was getting ready to fight Joe Frazier down in San Diego. And they had these sparring partners. One of them, Ken Arlett was one. He was 16. I was 19. I went down there and they paid $500 a week. Hotels paid. And it was called Johnny Taco's Gym in Nevada.
That's big money back then. $500 a week.
Plus, you got your hotel paid like you got here, and food and expenses and all that. But basically, you weren't allowed to throw any punch. You weren't allowed to hurt nobody. You had headgear on, of course, but you got the living shit beat out of you. And that's how you learn, too. And I worked with Ken Norton for about 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And then that's about all I could take, to be honest with you. And I came back home, and my dad was real proud of me, so I was going to turn pro. Now, go up, I was doing this a lot. There was another guy, there was Bob Foster, who was in New Mexico. He'd come down and get ready for fights, so I'd go down the same thing, work out with him at Johnny Taco's. So it's a well-known gym he passed away, but it's a well-known gym in Nevada. So that's how I learned to fight. I would get the shit beat out of me by pros. And I just loved it. I loved to get the shit beat out of me. It just was a great feeling. It was like almost having an orgasm. I was sick, is what it was.
But you're also fighting the stars, so I understand the feeling that you get from that too. It makes you feel that you can hang with the stars if they're not knocking you out, I guess.
Well, there's a lot of times I was knocked out going back to the corner, my body followed me back in. Yeah. But they wouldn't try and kill you, but a couple of times you'd even land, I'd land the left hook was my shot, and I'd hurt them and got the head turned around, then they take it out on you. I mean, boom, they just really beat the shit out of you then. But I kept learning. Then there was, you said, I seen the interview you had with Larry Holmes, which was a great interview, by the way. Fantastic. I don't know how you pulled that off.
A lot of work.
Man, that was a great interview, because Larry Holmes was one of the guys I always wanted to work with but never did. And
I'm supposed to get a Buster Douglas one in March, a full career interview, so hopefully I'll be more into the boxing as time goes on. Yeah,
Buster Douglas did a number on Tyson, didn't he? I mean, in Japan, it was?
Yeah.
I mean, he beat the living shit out of him. Then all of a sudden, the 11th round, he comes out of nowhere. Tyson comes up with this uppercut and down. I thought that was it. And he remember, he banged his fist down. He was mad, got back up and knocked Tyson out. He got rid of, that time they got rid of Kevin Rooney, And Rooney was, he could call out a punch combination, 1, 2, 4, 6, whatever, jab, hook, overhand right, uppercut. He'd number him. And once Rooney left, he had no tutelage whatsoever.
What was your favorite combination?
Everything came off the jab. Everything works off the jab, So jab, left hook, feint. I used to feint. I was a very defensive fighter. I'd let the guy make the first counterpuncher, let him make the first mistake, and that's how we were taught. The trainer was Ed Milberger. Then after I got out of prison, the stockade, I was 19. When I go up 20, still fighting with the pros, 21, there's a guy named Tommy Sullivan in 1975. Now, Tommy Sullivan was a national Golden Gloves champion who beat Michael Spinks for the national Golden Gloves in 75. 76 Olympic Games was Michael Spinks beat him in a controversial split decision that Spinks lost every round, but they gave it to him anyway.
Yeah.
He should have never went to the Olympics. His brother and Sugar Ray Leonard, all those guys went in 76. Now, it was Michael Spinks that beat Larry Holmes at 48-0. It was Michael Spinks that beat him twice and ruined his record to beat Marciano at 49. So the guys that I was working with, I could hold my own against. Tommy Sullivan was beat Michael Spinks, beat the shit out of Michael Spinks twice. And here this guy beats Larry Holmes, so that's the caliber of fighters that I was in against, So it came natural for me to use my fist in everything after that. In 1976, I met a girl, or 74, I met a girl. She got pregnant. She had a son. I had a kid. I didn't know if it was a boy or a girl. She left with another guy. 76, my dad went blind. It was horrible from diabetes. He had juvenile diabetes. I never told you that. And so he went totally blind. So then now I got a son. My dad. Well, who do I take care of? I'm going to go with my son, leave my dad to go in a nursing home at 49 years old, 48. So I left my son to the side because he had a guy in his life, and I took care of my blind dad. When I took care of my blind dad, and that was it. I got into the cocaine dealing, all those stuff came up. After that, I got into the bars. Willie Nelson, the guy I was telling about, the fighter that went down, my uncle knew him. The guy that I thought that was my dad, my biological father, Willie Nelson. Harold Pillman down there that fought, down in New York. Yeah. Before I was conceived. I thought he might be my father. I went nuts. Lenny Montana, my father. Vince McMahon Sr., my father, because he supposedly had sex with my mother down there. I didn't know who my dad was. All I know wasn't the guy who raised me, but I loved him more than anything because he never left my side. And so I didn't want to leave his. So then I was really, really angry. Really, really angry. And I'd done some really stupid shit at that time. I got involved with the heavy, heavy gangs in Portland. So as I grew up older, 23, 24, 25-ish, I got real defensive. I came really close to killing a couple guys with my fist.
Were you mostly selling or were you collecting as well?
I was selling. I didn't collect. I didn't do any collections. And there was a guy that beat a woman up one time, and that's the first time I ever did anything as far as a contractual thing. And I almost beat him to death. And actually, I was supposed to, but I couldn't do it. The very first time I did it, I couldn't do it. And so I found out the hard way, you got to do what you're told to do, because I didn't get paid. And so I didn't want to get into that. There was three in Portland, Oregon, there was 3 nightclubs that I was in charge of that Willie Nelson, the gangster, Harold Pillman, and everybody knows this in Portland, and if you do your research, you'll find this out. Harold Pillman, Willie Nelson, a.k.a. Willie Nelson, the fighter, who was going to be a fighter, who was actually, by the way, 24-0.
Right.
He turned pro back in Portland. He said, fuck New York, came back to Portland, and Sorry about the cuss words. I'm trying not to cuss. And he was 26 and 0, 24, 26 and 0. Then he went to prison for 6 years, got out of prison, and then tried to fight too quick and lost 3 in a row. And then he got into the gang, prostitution, pimping, drugs, cocaine, heroin, you name it. And so I went right along with him. He became my idol, and I kept that away from my blind dad. And so I went through this period to where contracts would come in, and it's pretty hard to tell you this because, but I'd done things I should have never done, and I did do them. And
were you into the drugs too at all?
Never took drugs. Well, I smoked marijuana when I was 16. Drank a little bit. I'd been buzzed. It wasn't my thing. It was. I got off on hurting people because I was hurt when I was a kid. So I would hurt. Like I told you, I got these cigarettes and cigars put out in my leg, and so I enjoyed hurting other people that hurt people or hurt kids or hurt animals. I love animals. So I just became a hateful person, and then I missed my son. I found out I had that son, and I felt guilty. And
so how did you get into wrestling?
Well, there's a big part that I'm missing out here. There's a major league part I'm missing out here. And it's something I better not get into you with, because it's something that could have me arrested and sent to prison the rest of my life. I think I told you that last time. I don't know if it was you or somebody else.
I don't think it was me.
Yeah, it was 19. This was in 1980, 81. Something had happened, and it was a contract that I was going to carry out. I was going to actually kill my own father. My dad didn't want to live. There was a bathroom. Try and imagine this. I'm running 3 bars in Portland. There's a Copper Penny, the Refectory, and the Stone Pony, and anybody in Portland knows those 3. And the Vice Police, and myself, Willie Nelson, Harold, a.k.a. Willie Nelson, Harold Pillman, who was the toughest gangster fighter. He could knock out heavyweights. I mean, he's the guy that went down to New York, like I told you.
Yeah.
And now he's a full-grown man. He took me under his wing. And so I'm fighting everybody like he is. So we're doing the cocaine, and you had to pay like 10 or 15% to the vice cops, so we had this circle of protection around all the bars. We couldn't be touched.
Yeah.
So he was going down to Baton Rouge, Louisiana to get the cocaine, or he had somebody fly down eventually and brought back 10, 15 kilos every month. And they'd break it down into 8 balls and it would be sold.
Yeah.
So you break it down, you'd make 90,000 a kilo, which costs you like 35, 40,000. So you make $50,000 profit on each kilo. Well, you go down there once a month, you do the math on that, that's like almost $1 million profit a month. And so that's what was going on in Portland. And people became highly addicted on cocaine. And I never did it. I never did cocaine. I've never done it in my life yet. Mine was pain pills in WWF. And so that went on, and I finally wanted to get to the big time. To get to where I was going down there, instead of selling 8 balls and maybe taking a little bit of risk, I wanted to go down there and be the big guy. So I'm going to bypass what happened in 1981 because it's just too dangerous to tell you about. And maybe we can talk off record about it, I don't know. But in 81, I flew down with Willie Nelson to Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And that's where I met Barry Seal in the airport. Or not the airport, his bodyguards took us to a rest area where he was, and he is somebody that he could trust because he was working with the CIA, everybody. Everybody knew Barry Seal. And so that's where he got his coke from, and that's where I started my relationship from. And at that point, he trusted me enough to where I could come down and fly down and then drive back with the kilos myself instead of the other guy. So I started making more money, and then we got to 20 kilos a month instead of 10, 12. So I would do that. I did that for 3 times. At that time, I was offered a job as security, working for security in Mena, Arkansas. Now, Mena, Arkansas is where all the action was. I had no idea at the time what was even going on. But if you know where Mena, Arkansas is, that's where everybody got they flew in the cocaines from the Medellin cartel in Colombia. Well, I had no knowledge of that at that time. But then Barry smartened me up. Barry Steele smartened me up to all that.
Why Arkansas?
That's why Arkansas? Because that's where Bill and Hillary Clinton lives. And they were the ones that were doing it. And they were the ones that were protecting everybody. And anybody who got involved in it was whacked out. And hey man, I've come clean with this. That's why, hey.
So this is all before you started wrestling?
This is all before I started wrestling. And this is right on the verge of wrestling though. Okay, this is 81, 82, I got it, I was still sparring a little bit. I was 28, I think, 28. I wasn't quite 29. I was doing trafficking. I was making around $15,000 a weekend. Then it went up to around $25,000 a weekend, which is a lot of money. Yeah. And I come back home to my dad and act like nothing ever happened. And finally my dad just said, you know, he didn't want to live no more because I'd hear him crying every night, and he didn't know what I did. And I'd take care of him, put him in his wheelchair, give him his insulin, and then he lost his foot. And he got his foot amputated. And when he lost his foot, he was bound to a wheelchair. Then he lost his little 17-year-old terrier dog. And I'd hear him cry every night. And this is what really happened. I just may as well just tell you, you know, because, you know, I like you, man. I've always liked you. Before we even met, I used to watch you, you know, and this is something I've always wanted to get off my back anyway. And I think I told you off the scripture, you know, I always liked you. You know, I think that you got a raw deal with the hepatitis C. You gave me encouragement. Now I don't have hepatitis C. I appreciate you. I appreciate that from you, Hannibal, because I was dying. You know, I was going into stage 4 liver, and now it's.
Let's hope it can regenerate.
Yeah, and but I thank you for that. And but in '81, my dad couldn't take it anymore, and so I was going to kill my dad. I asked him if he wanted to die, and I said, if you die, I'm going to die. I'm going to die with you. So I had the money I had made. I was turning into silver dollars into 5-gallon drums. I didn't put it in these overseas accounts. You know, I didn't do that. I had close to, at that time, over $1 million in silver dollars, maybe even more. And my dad didn't want to live. I said, well, I'm going to kill myself with you because I can't stand you crying, and I hear it all night, and he doesn't have anything to live for anymore. So I put I had a .357 Magnum. I put 1 round in. I spun the chamber. And I said, Dad, are you sure? Because I'm going to kill myself too. And he said, no, I don't want you to do that. Well, my dad couldn't see, and I just said, F it, because I couldn't take anymore. You know, when you hear your dad crying that you love, I mean, even if you know it's not your biological dad, this guy's done everything for me.
Oh yeah, I understand.
I took the gun, I pointed it right at his head, and I had another bullet right here for me. I didn't know what chamber won. It was 5-to-1 odds, and I let it go. Nothing, blank. So right there, what the hell am I doing? You know, what the hell am I doing? So I got to that level, to where I was going to take my own dad's life and my own. So I knew I wasn't playing with a full deck. I knew there was something really wrong with me at that time. And that's why I could go out and take a contract and take somebody, I won't say who, but take somebody's life, break somebody's leg. I could do anything I wanted to do because I just didn't give a fuck about anything. That's it. If I lived or died, it didn't matter. My dad couldn't see, he couldn't walk. I hated the fucking world. I got raped. I could take 20 showers. I still felt dirty. I still felt it. I still felt it up my ass. I just felt I hated everybody. I was one of the most violent people, just like you. You know, you. I don't know if you say kickboxing and all that. I was a very violent person too.
I would say I was more violent and bouncing than kickboxing, but yeah.
But that's the way I was too, Hannibal. You know, and I think that's why I kind of clicked with you off, never doing an interview with you, because you're the first guy I really started watching, you know, and with shoot interviews. I said one day I want to do one with you. Now here we are, you know.
So you went from that, somehow you're introduced to wrestling. How do you get into that?
Lenny Montana is 6'7" and friends with Eddie Graham. Lenny Montana was there, if you recall, I mentioned his name back in 1952 when we met. He was the one who came out and picked my mother up and flew us back to New York, or flew my mother and Willie Nelson, the boxer, back to New York before I was even conceived. That was in October of '52, when Marciano just won the title in the month before. Go fast forward 9 months, is exactly July 10th, 1953. That's 9 months of conception. That's when I was born. That's why this cloud of who my father is just driving me fucking nuts. You know, it's why I want these DNA tests. I want to know who it is. But Lenny Montana claims that it was him or Vince, told me. Lenny died in '92. Lenny was 6'7". I'm 6'3". My son is 6'7", and my grandson may be 6'10", 6'11". Well, my dad who raised me is only 5'8". So Willie Nelson's only 5'8". So Vince McMahon is 6'4", senior, and 6'3", and the other guy, Lenny Montana, is 6'6". So I think one of those two got to be my dad. It was driving me nuts. So the wrestling came about after I failed to do the security for Barry Seal. I didn't want to do security, so I went back home, and this opportunity arose to be a wrestler. So this Stu Hart thing came up. Go down there and I'm going to make my dad proud. Now I tried to kill him, and I didn't do it.
So someone told you to go to the dungeon, somebody suggested you go to Calgary.
Okay, good. That's a good call, because I left that out. I went down to the Portland Sports Arena, where Portland Wrestling was. So now I want to make my dad proud and get out of the industry a little bit. And go down there. I talked to a guy named Dutch Savage. Dutch Savage said, go down to Calgary, Alberta, and meet Stu Hart. I go down there. I told my dad what I was going to do, and he was real proud of me. So my other half brothers took care of my dad when I went down there. I was only there for about a month, and I didn't like it. You know, it just Dynamite Kid trained me. You know.
What year would this have been?
This was August of '82.
Okay.
I had just turned 29. And then I missed the drug scene, you know. Yeah. I missed making the big money and all that. So
who was training you?
Dynamite Kid did most of the training. Davey Boy Smith did some. Bret Hart never even gave me the time of day, because at that time I was 6'3", about 280. I was on roids at that time too. A lot of guys were on roids at that time, you know. And so why I don't know. Didn't care anyway.
What did Stu think of you? Because you seem like the type he would have loved back then.
Stu, when I knocked on the door, he said, "You big bastard," you know, like that. And Stu stretched me down the dungeon. Down in that Stu Hart dungeon, there's little holes everywhere, where and then you sign it. And I don't know if I signed it or not, but like one of those holes in there is my head, where I got rammed through it. He put me in the front. He'll put you in the front face lock.
Yeah.
And then you've got to try and get out of it, you know. And then he'll brace himself up against the wall, And what he did with me, I tried to ram him through the wall, ended up ramming my head through it. And he squeezed me, picked me all the way up and to unconsciousness. And I woke up, I don't know how, maybe 20 seconds later. And I got to go outside because it was in August of '82, it was summer. And so I made it to the outside ring. I had all this talent, but I wanted to go back into drug dealing. Went back to Portland.
Did you ever have a match?
Yeah, I did have matches. Yeah, I did have matches in the on Friday, Calgary, and did a few runs to Regina and stuff like that.
So even with limited training, they threw you in there.
Yeah, I only trained 10 days. I had my first match.
Who was booking at that time? Was it?
That's a good question. I think maybe Bruce Hart. I don't know if Bret Hart was.
It revolved quite a lot down there, so.
Yeah, I don't really remember who was booking. All I remember is the Regina was 500 miles one way and 500 back. And the guys, I never realized what volume was until we went to Regina. I made $25 Canadian. And then on the way back, this guy named Wakamatsu used to drive.
Yeah.
And he'd fall asleep. So I'd take over and drive. Everybody was passed out, and I would drive back to Regina, or to Calgary from Regina. And that was quite interesting. And
so I don't blame you actually for wanting to go back to making more money.
Well, it was a great experience. So I mean, I got to meet the wrestlers and stuff. And
what did you think of Bruce? Because a lot of people have varying opinions on him.
Well, he always treated me good, except when I found out that he had some 14-year-old. He was a teacher and had some 14-year-old girl he was going to marry. Or got her pregnant.
He ended up marrying her, and then in a bizarre turn of events, Davey was dating her at the time of his death, and it's a movie could be made about the whole situation. But that was a whole weird situation.
But when I heard that he was with a 14-year-old too, I got to admit that was a turnoff for me, being an abused kid. So I got out of there a little bit. I may have been using that for an excuse too. I don't know, but I didn't like it, and
she would have been about 14 at that time, I guess, right, when you were there.
Yeah, in '82. Yeah. And in fact, he was pretty public about it. He brought her. I think she even came over to her at the Stu Hart house, for dinners and stuff. So.
And he would also take her on the road sometimes, apparently, because I remember I've heard from several people that they felt uncomfortable about it being in the van with him.
I don't honestly remember being in the van, but I do remember being in the dungeon. And but I went back to Portland, and Dr. D. David Schultz was there, and Rip Oliver, and I was working out in the gym, and he said, "You can be a pro wrestler. How'd you do down there?" I said, "Nah, I didn't like it." They were working out the same gym I was, so he said, "Why don't you come down to Portland Wrestling, just see what you've learned, because we need a baby face." So I went down there, and we had a match for like 15 minutes, and it was a good match. He said, "Shit, man, you've learned. Why don't you just come here and be a baby face from Portland?" I said, "Nah, I'm kind of into other stuff, and by that time, I knew a lot of the wrestlers because they used to come to the Stone Pony and get drugs from me, buy coke.
Yeah.
And I don't want to mention any names there either, just because it would be kind of unfair, Yeah. A lot of them passed away. And so they knew what I already was. And so they wanted me to get in this other world. And so I got into Portland Wrestling. I was there for a year, all the way through '83. I was home. In '84, I had an opportunity to go to Florida, and Eddie Graham and then Lenny Montana was supposed to meet me down there. So I thought it was my dad. So that was my main influence to go down there, is to see if Lenny Montana and talk to him, because I know he's my biological father. Or Vince Sr., I heard was sick, and I wanted to meet him and talk to him. And he ended up dying in '84. May 24th, like I said, same day as my mom, 15 years earlier, 69. So I go to Florida, Eddie Graham, all these guys meet me, and then I get a contract. I get a contract on a major player, and it's a huge contract. And that was in January. That was in April of '84, and I fulfilled the contract. And I was wrestling for Eddie, and I didn't know, a lot of guys don't even know this, but Eddie passed away, so I don't know how I can even get into this, but Eddie was a big part of me. Lenny was a big part of me, and Lenny was a member of the Colombo crime family, syndicate, Italian, and I know I got Italian, Indian in me. So I was between a rock and a hard space, between the Colombo crime family, who was protecting me, I guess, because they knew I was Lenny Pastafaro was his name, Lenny Pastafaro, or Lenny Montana was his wrestling name, his son, or I was Vince Sr.'s son. And so you can look the record up yourself. It was in Chicago, '84, I went down to WWF. Vince wanted me there. I talked to him, I said, you know very well that we could be half brothers. And so people think, oh yeah, you may have brothers. I could give a shit about the money. The money that Vince has means nothing to me, because there's still a $1 billion lawsuit going on that I started. That's down the line from our interview. But I just want to know, I want to find out who my dad is and just be straight up. So at that time, Vince Sr. was about ready to die in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And so before I could get down there, he died. And Vince, I went down there to see Vince. I said, did he say anything about me or anything like that? And I was only there 2 days. Vince was trying to push me as a top babyface out of Florida because I was on like 35 whatever magazines in Florida with Kerry Von Erich and all that. I had no knowledge of me even being on these magazines.
Right.
But Bill Apter just told me this yesterday. And I just want to know who my dad was. So when I didn't find out who my dad was, I said, fuck it, back to dealing drugs and heavy duty drugs, man, all the way through till '86. And we were moving like 180 kilos a month.
When were you married to Jeannie? What year was that?
God, I passed that up. That was '83 back in Portland.
Okay.
You want to hear the story? I don't know how you're going to edit it. It's hard for me to stay focused because of head trauma and CTE, which I do possess. Yeah. I've got a lot of head trauma. You got the camera. Where's the camera? Right here?
Yeah.
I got the long hair, but I've been beat. These are some razor blades and being beat. My nose has been broke. I don't know how many times, but I've had a reconstructive surgery on my face and all that. It's just Jeannie was being beaten up by a guy named her first boyfriend, Chris Adams. And I like Chris. Chris was a good guy, but when he got high, he'd be very physical with her. In Salem, Oregon, it was pouring down rain. I was driving back from Salem to Portland Wrestling in '83. It was like January, and Jeannie was walking, and I seen her, and I said, "Get in, man." So she got in the car. I said, "What happened?" And she had this here shiner, had just been hit in the head or her face, and she said that Chris did it. Well, I took at that time. I said, "Well, you come stay with me tonight." There was no sex. She was a beautiful woman, but there was no sexual interest at all in her at that time at all. I just wanted to help her, and she said she wanted to stay in the United States. So at that time, the next week, Chris went to Japan. Chris Adams went to Japan and said Jeannie had to be out and go back to England because her visa was up. I talked to Jeannie. I said, "Listen, he'll have no idea of this. Why don't I marry you? And then if I marry you, you have American citizenship and you can stay here in this country." And that's what we did. We got married. And I'm not saying we didn't have sex, because we did, but maybe 5 times in the year we were married, or 9 months we were married. I had a little girl named Jade who I fell in love with. She's a beautiful little girl. And Chris Adams came back, and I was wrestling in Portland, and Chris Adams comes back, and now I'm married to Jeannie. When he left, that was his girlfriend.
Yeah.
So that's like the biggest betrayal anybody could ever do, you know. But she wanted to do it. I wanted to do it because this cocksucker wasn't going to be beaten on her no more. You know, abuse I can't stand. I can't handle. And so he came.
She's gone on record saying he was cheating on her constantly as well, wasn't he?
I don't know about that. I don't know about the cheating, Hannibal, but the beating I do know. And I don't know. Through the shattered glass, you know, I read it. She put me over in it, you know, in the book, and I didn't do nothing but help her. So.
And she did mention you had money at the time. You had a fancy car,
yeah.
I believe. So
I
guess
kept
that
my
was from the
cocaine away
drugs.
from her. She knew nothing about my cocaine dealings. Nobody did. You can't do that. You can't ever let that out or you're done. And that's what I learned. You know, silence is golden, man. And so no one knew anything about my drug dealing at all. Nobody, absolutely zero, nobody. Not even my family, nobody. And but
So what was Chris's reaction? Did he say anything? Obviously, you were much bigger than him and a boxer, so there's not much you can do about it.
well, that's not what he said. He come back and he said he's going to kick my ass, that he's a judo expert, and that he's going to break my back. And I knew, I had met and I had known Bad News Brown, you know.
Yeah, from Calgary.
Yeah, Bad News Allen.
Yeah.
And he was a judo expert. I already knew that because he was in the '76 Olympic Games. He should have won the gold medal. He won the bronze, but he should have won the gold medal because that's the same '76 Olympic Games that Tommy Sullivan, the guy who beat Michael Spinks, should have been in the Olympic Games then because I was going to go with him. So we were really pissed off about that. But we seen the judo thing. We seen Bad News Allen, you know, in the Olympics. Not win, but get the bronze.
Yeah.
So I already knew of Allen. So I met him down there in Calgary when I went down there too. I forgot to tell you that. So when he said he was a judo guy, I said, well, let's see what you can fucking do. So I slammed the door in the locker room in Portland Wrestling, and all the boys, they thought a gun went off. And so I slammed the door. I said, come on, motherfucker, try and hit me. You want to hit a woman? Try and hit me. So all I did was go over to him, and he went around and ran around the other side, the heel side, and that was it. We didn't fight. We didn't do nothing. And so that was it. Then I went to Texas later, and the same thing happened. I guess he found out I went to Texas and split too. I would never hurt him. I loved Chris Adams. Just when he was drunk, he was very abusive, you know?
Yeah. I'll just take a piss while they stop.
Okay, man. Thanks, Hannibal.
Yeah. You could, yeah, we'll just take the towels. I'll give you the old ones.
Need soaps or shampoos or anything?
No, other than that, I'm good.
Water?
Water, I'm good.
Okay, you're good. Okay.
Toilet
Thanks.
paper or anything?
I think I'm good.
You're good. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Thanks.
Y'all have a good day.
You too. I'll just take a piss.
Rob's stressing me out already. They want us there by 12 o'clock.
What time is it now?
It's 10:30.
What time is his flight?
Tonight, at 7 o'clock, 7:30 something. But the guy who's doing the interview,
Yeah.
Tim, the guy that has to leave soon, so...
Well, the other thing I could do is if I'm driving him back to the airport, is we could do
You could film...
half and
You
then
could film late, you could film the second half.
after Rob's
could-
interview.
Yeah, you can come back here and finish up what you don't have, so that we can, if you want to leave at 11, then that way I can be there for 12.
Sure.
I mean, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, no, we'll do
I
that.
want you to get your full thing, just whatever.
If Billy doesn't mind, if he's not leaving till 7 anyways, because they said we'll be 2 hours there.
Man, whatever it takes, man. You know, I'm here for you, Hannibal,
I'm going
because
home, so from Rob's thing, I'm going straight home. I'm not,
Okay.
I'm done after that. I'm tired.
I understand.
I got to get home to the family. And he's not going home till Monday, so you don't have till 7, you don't have to be at the airport till 5.
okay.
And that interview will be done by 2 o'clock. So hypothetically, you could be back here by 3 and finish by 4:30.
Yeah. All right, we'll do that. So we'll do another half hour. If it's 10:30 now, you said?
Yeah, it's 10:30, so we leave at 11.
Yeah.
Okay, I got it. Okay.
Let's see.
What's Rob stressed out about, man?
the guy who's doing the interview, Tim, partner, has a time issue, so we got to get to that interview. So we got to leave. We got to leave here by 11. So we get over here by 11:30, close the 12.
Well, where is he at? Where they
About
at?
20 minutes away. About 20 minutes away. So by the time we walk out, we come back, whatever.
Because my mind works on a straight arrow. You know, I'm not a normal.
Yeah. So we're doing another half hour here. We're taking a break. We're going over to the Jersey to do the shoot thing in Jersey for the gimmick thing.
Okay.
With Rob. When you're done with that, Hannibal's going to take you back to the hotel here.
And finish up?
Finish up for about an hour and a half. You guys want to get a bite to eat later or whatever, before you go to the airport, whatever you want to do. I'm going home straight from Rob's thing. I'm going home. So after that Rob thing's done, you guys are on your own to finish up, do whatever.
I told Hannibal on the phone. we both already knew this coming in, man. He says, "Oh, we do anything. It's all the work." You know? It's just no shoot whatsoever.
Well, we'll discuss it there. We'll just bang off the last half hour here, and we'll come back after that thing.
But if you want to hype it up, I'll hype it up as much as you want. But this is the last thing they're going to see. Or this is the first thing or the last?
Oh, that thing is only going out on DVD, right?
I think so. Or his video.
Yeah. Hardly anyone will see that compared to this, because this is out free. So I'm not I have no financial stake in that, so we can plug it.
Well, you have financial stake in this, right?
Yes.
I'm telling you, when I want to talk to you about working with me in an autobiography, would you?
Well, yeah, we can see about that and other stuff.
Because I want you to verify what I'm saying first, because you said you a little few. I think you're just trying to get heat, but this is all verifiable. Everything I've told you is verifiable.
Oh yeah, even Shane Douglas was telling me that he believes some of your stories that people were saying.
Well, listen, I had to go. We can do this on record, but I had to take and go Arkansas.
I'll ask you about that after. I'll ask it in the timeline, but I'll do it after.
I had to take 2 lie detector tests. If I didn't pass them, I was looking at life in prison without parole.
I actually researched that case a bit last night, so we'll get into that.
Okay.
But let's just try and get the half hour remaining. So we just finished on Chris Adams.
Okay.
And then you were saying, how did it end with Jeannie? It lasted about a year.
Yeah, Jeannie and I, we got along real good. I never even raised my voice at Jeannie. She was such a sweetheart, and I loved her as like a sister that I never had. I never told her about my abuses, never told her about the cocaine dealing, never told her about anything. So she doesn't know anything about that. But I did keep her from getting beaten up. And then I think she went back and seen her mother in England, which I gave her the money for, and because she didn't have the money at that time. At that time she didn't. And she went to England, and that's the last time I seen her. Now, when I went to Florida, she came to Florida. We tried for a short time to get together again, but at that time, there was this other really good-looking gal, and she came in, found out I was in the hotel with her, and she came in to see me with this woman, and that didn't help. And but we gave each other a hug and everything, and she'd go out she stayed at a hotel at the Hall of Fame Inn in Tampa. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were working out at the time there, and Ricky Bell was there at the time, before he died with the Bucks. And she'd go out there and lay under with that beautiful body and lay out there, and all the Buccaneers are out there, man, going. I mean, it was really crazy. It's a crazy time. But she ended up going to Texas and marrying Stone Cold Steve Austin. So she, obviously, when like this, I said, you know, what I was told, what I understood is she was getting the shit beat out of her by him. When I said that, that's what I thought she told me. I can't verify that. I can't.
Well, reading her book, it seemed like it was a bit of unhealthy relationship from a mental side, anyways. But whatever, they broke up. But I understand because they have kids together. They're still.
Well, look at the money issue too, Hannibal. Look up what Stone Cold is worth, $45 million. So she's got money at stake here, and I don't want her to lose any of that money. I want her to have as much as she can. I still love her as a friend, and she's a beautiful woman, as you know. And they all got kids now together too. So, but Stone Cold.
And the daughters are all beautiful, actually. Too.
I know it. Oh God, how could they not be? Stone Cold and what a bloodline. Yeah. But Stone Cold does have a problem beating women. He does have a problem hitting women for some reason when he's drinking, I guess. So that he's done it with Deborah McMichael.
I know. I know those rumors, but I just won't get into it because like he watches my chat. He's not my buddy, but I don't want to be enemies with him. He's better to have on my side.
Hey, you know, I'm gonna tell you something too. I've always, you know, Stone Cold and I went down the road together when I was Black Blood in '91. And so I brought up Jeannie one time, right? And she goes, don't talk about her, I'm going to marry her or something. I said, what? I said, I'm going to marry her. I said, what the fuck? I said, I used to be married to her. He goes, well, she's mine now or something. I said, next thing I know, I'm Black Blood, and she comes in, here's Jeannie, Lady Blossom on her side in WCW with Ted Turner. So I give Jeannie a hug, and what the shit, you know?
Yeah, because you would have known Austin maybe before WCW too, maybe in Texas or Memphis, maybe.
Yeah. Well, did he tell you about the fight with me and Steve? Did Steve tell you about the fight with me and him?
No.
Well, see, that was with Brian Pillman, but that's going to be secondhand information because Pillman is dead now. Because I knew Brian too. Brian was with me a little bit, and Brian was a witness to it. And because I had heard that he slapped her. And so I took him in the locker room, and Brian Pillman was the referee, and I told him to go ahead and slap me. He wouldn't slap me. This is when I was Black Blood. And he was stunning Steve Austin, stunning Cold Steve Austin, whatever the name was. And so I said, man, if you don't slap me, I'm going to slap you. So I mean, and he wouldn't slap me. So I slapped him, and he went down. And so he stayed down. He got back up. I slapped him again. I said, get back up. He would not get back up. He would not get back up to his feet. Now, he'll probably deny it because Pillman is dead. But that's a true story, and if he wants to take it some other place, I'd be more than happy to. You know, but that's a true story. And that happened in 1991. I was only there 2 months because I ended up blowing my knee out coming off the top rope as Black Blood.
Were you friends with Pillman too? Is that why Pillman was staying out of it?
I knew Pillman when he had the tryouts with the Bengals, and right before he broke into Calgary too, you know, and I'm the one that kind of led him there. And I think it was '86 he broke in there, and then his death is very, very. I believe he was murdered. He was killed October 5th. October 5th is the day Iran Contra. If you look it up. I also failed to tell you this, that I'm part of an inner circle breed. My dad was born May 1st. That's the day, if you look up, that's the day Illuminati in 1776 was formed. My mother was born May 29th, 1929. And May 29th, 1954 is when the Bilderberger Group was formed. So that's 2. And then 3, we had to be a triangle. 3, John Rockefeller died in a car wreck, the 3rd, died in a car wreck July 10th, 1978. That's my birthday. So that's when I became part of the Democratic Inner Clique and part of a CIA AIC, American Inner Circle or Central Intelligence Agency,
So now to go back with how you got into WWE, because we kind of got sidetracked there. How did you actually get contacted from the Florida territory to start with WWE.
Yeah, I wish I wouldn't have confused it like this, but that's just the way my head rolls, man. You're talking about, ask me that question one more time.
The first time you came up to WWE, how did you get brought up there? Because I think you were saying you were in Florida before, and then you were recruited up to WWE.
Okay. And after Vince McMahon Sr. died, May 24th, 1984, I wanted to talk to him really bad because I know that I really feel that he's 50-50. He's my dad or it's Lenny Montana. So, and Lenny even told me this, Lenny Montana. Eddie Graham told me this.
Yeah.
Well, Eddie Graham happened to get, they said that he committed suicide in 1985 by shooting himself 3 times in the back of the head. If you look at the autopsy, there's no way a man can shoot himself in the back of the head 3 times. You know, now that varies on that. Eddie was distraught, but see, Eddie worked with me, and Lenny worked with me. Everybody worked with me. I worked with them, and I don't believe that happened. So I was working in the Texas territory at that time. The Von Erichs wanted me to go down there. Eddie told me to do it because Dusty left and went to Carolinas. He said, just go get the F out of here. Eddie was a millionaire. I don't know why he would kill himself. Eddie had a lot of money. Everybody said he didn't have money. He had money, hidden. And so when I heard he was killed, I was wrestling Shawn Michaels, as a matter of fact. Shawn Michaels' very first match. I wrestled it's on YouTube. I don't know if you ever seen it. It's on YouTube. You can look it up. It was somewhere in 85, like January 10th, before Eddie died, January 15th. And I'm wrestling Shawn Michaels' very first match. He's green, he's real scared. And look at him today. We're going to be a great worker and all that. But after I wrestled him, I heard Eddie killed himself a couple days later. And so then I went back right away, quit there, Rip Oliver over, and then went back to Florida. And sure enough, he was murdered. I know he was murdered.
Now, just on Texas, what was your experience like with the Von Erichs?
Well, Fritz Von Erich was a piece of fucking shit. That's what he was. He was a liar. He never was true to his word to me. He's passed away, so I'm using some pretty bad language on him, but you know, he was. He lied to me about everything. He got me down there. He got me down there with a lie. He said that I was going to go down there as Billy Jack because he wanted me to babysit his sons because they were all into drugs and stuff like that. And I said, what's kind of horrible thing to say about your sons? Because I was good friends with Kerry at the time. And so I went down there. The real Billy Jack, Tom Laughlin, was there. And his wife, Dolores Taylor. And they said to drop the Billy Jack gimmick. And that I couldn't use it no more. So he said I have to be Billy Von Erich. So he just entrapped me in that. So that's where the Billy Jack Haynes came in. I'm glad it did because it honored my father's last name anyway. But it was just a dirty sheep trick he did, and I made sure that he knew about it. In fact, I came very close to knocking the shit out of that old man. I mean, I'm an old man myself now, so it'd be like you knocking the shit out of me. I would have done it. I came very close to it. And then I just said, fuck you, and left. And that's the way I was back then.
How were the kids? Were they
were
all
great.
Yeah.
They were great kids, man. If I had a dad like that, I'd be fucked up on drugs too. That's me. And they were fucked up on drugs, and he knew it. So what the hell? He let him. I mean, even little Chris was doing acid and all kinds of stuff. So.
Do you have any examples of anything you witnessed of any of the Von Erich boys being fucked up in the ring or anything, or behind the scenes?
You know, it's so hard for me to say anything about those kids because, you know, Mike, I wrestled with Mike against, with Jake the Snake was down there, and before, who's the guy that was killed because he owed the drug bill? My ex-wife, Jeannie, found him.
Oh, Gino Hernandez.
Gino Hernandez.
Did you know him?
Yeah, I knew him real well. I knew he was with some young girl of the mafia, and she was like 15 years old, and they, through me, because Gino worked through me, said to tell Gino to leave. He had a warning. He had one warning, and he was lucky to get that. Don't be effing this 15-year-old mafia girl. And he continued to do it. And so I guess Jeannie lived next door or some whatever. She's the one that found him. But I don't know if it was cocaine or they went in and 86'd him. But it was a hot dose or something.
Supposedly they found the cocaine in the stomach, which, as you know, that's unusual. You wouldn't eat cocaine.
No, they got him.
Strange.
No, they got him.
So for Florida, did you have much contact with Dusty Rhodes when you were in Florida?
Never liked Dusty Rhodes. Never cared for him. You know, and that's what would keep you and me out of AEW because of Cody. I checked into it, and because I would be a perfect manager for you. You know, you're the best talent that's not made it in the big leagues that I've seen. I mean, I've heard many people say that. So I myself looked into it, and then now I know that Cody Rhodes is involved in it. There's no chance. I called Dusty a fat fucking liar. He left Eddie Graham unattended after that Miami show. I wrestled superstar Billy Graham, and there was like 50,000 people. Don Shula was there, all kinds of celebrities, and I think Dusty ran off at the gate, you know, and went to the Carolinas, had it pre-planned, and he took 9 of the superstars out of Florida wrestling and went to the Carolinas and left Eddie with nothing.
Oh yeah, that's been documented. That really hurt the business.
Yes, yeah, I was there when it happened. And I said, Eddie, I'll stay here with you, and I did for a month. And Eddie did come despondent, and because I'm the only one that stayed, but I think Blackjack Mulligan stayed too. You know, but that's why he said, get out of here, go to Texas, leave me alone.
Blackjack Mulligan was pretty tough. Did you ever see him in action?
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. In fact, the Saint, David Sihar, you know who he is? The Saint.
Oh yeah, wasn't he the Cuban assassin too?
He had so many gimmicks that Cuban assassin David Sierra, but he's Bill Alfonso's brother.
Is he? I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's Bill Alfonso, probably the best referee in the business. I just seen him yesterday for the first time. Great guy. And he had this white suit on. And there was a wrestler, and I still don't know who he was, went and asked in front of Kendall Windham when he was 17, asked Blackjack, hey man, you got any dope, man? You got any crank or whatever? And Blackjack told him to come over here. And while me and the Saint was in this room in Florida at the Sportatorium in Florida, he went to beat the shit out of him. And that entire white Saint suit was red with blood, almost the entire one. And then he had to go out first, and they called him about 5 minutes later, okay, you're on, with Gordon Soley, you know. And he went out there with blood all over his...
So Blackjack was mad because he had asked him for drugs?
Yeah, in front of everybody, instead of taking him to the side like you're supposed to do. You know, you go to something like that, you go one-on-one. You don't do it in front of the boys, you know, that's just the business.
There was some story I heard, I wish I'd asked Barry Windham about it because I heard it after the Barry Windham interview, but you had some heat with Barry Windham at one point.
Yeah.
And you had asked Blackjack if he would mind if you challenged him to a fight or something, because Blackjack was Barry's father.
That's very true. I went to Blackjack because I knew we were really good friends, you know. And Blackjack, you know, later on in his life, you know, he's on this major lawsuit that we had going on, and Barry was young, and you know, when you're young, I was 29 at the time. So when I came in, he was jealous of his spot, and Dusty was too, and I was getting a push from Eddie loved me, Eddie Graham loved me, and of course they all rebelled against me. And I could give a shit because I was already multi-millionaire in the cocaine industry. I had probably $6 million about that time in silver dollars put away in 5-gallon drums.
Yeah.
So I didn't need the money. It didn't mean nothing to me in wrestling. I wanted to find out who my pa was. So Windham kept fucking with me, and I went to Blackjack and I said, listen, your son keeps screwing with me, and I don't want to do this, but if he continues to do it, him and Rotundo are going to get their ass kicked by me, one at a time, and because they both kept screwing with me.
How were they screwing with you?
Well, here's what they did. You tell me what you would do as a wrestler if someone did this to you. You got your hat that I seen yesterday on, and you come over.
Cowboy hat.
Yeah, it's a nice hat. I liked it. It's a good gimmick. You put your hat down, you go in to wrestle in the ring, you come back in, now your hat's in the toilet with shit in it. What would you do?
I would find out who did that, and they'd be in a lot of trouble.
Okay, that's what happened. Prior to that happening, I went to Blackjack Mulligan, and I asked him, if he does this one more time, keeps fucking with me, I'm going to knock the shit out of him, you know? And so I come back after my match, and here it is. My hat's in the toilet with shit, but it said, a note that was written on it said, Billy Jack Haynes, Billy Jack after he gets the shit beat out of him. So I took the hat up, and the only witness that was there went on record with Brickhouse Brown. And so I picked it up and I put the shit, I put the hat down. I said, who done this? And Brickhouse Brown goes out this here to Windham, I said, to Windham, and Windham goes, oh, come on, man, you can't take a rib. And so I said, you got 2 seconds to defend yourself, man. And so like that, man, so I just tore into him, And I don't know I really don't know what happened. It was so fast, But I ended up knocking him out, picked him up by the hair and rammed his head into the sink, and just smashed his fucking head into the sink. Rotundo, Mike Rotundo, came from behind me and tried to break my arm to release Barry's head in the sink. As I got around it, and then he ran out the building like a chicken shit. This is the truth. He'll deny it or whatever, I don't care. But he ran out. The only witness to that said anything was Brickhouse Brown, and he's on record saying it. So
it was after that you spoke to Mulligan?
No, before and after.
Oh, okay.
But Mulligan said, no, hey man, he's 6'7", he can fight. Yeah. Let him do his own thing,
Okay. And so that was the end of it with Barry?
Yeah, Barry. It was very shortly after that we had the Miami show, and then they all took off. Barry took off. Rotundo, everybody left and went to North Carolina. Left me there with Eddie Graham, and that was basically the business. That was it. Florida Championship Wrestling at that time went.
So the last guy I'll ask you about before we take our break here to do the other thing is Billy Graham. You said you wrestled him. I'm pretty sure I'm good friends with him. Do you have anything to say about...
Oh, God. We wrestled in that show in Miami, the Full Nelson match. And, we put each other back and forth all the time, And of all the guys I've ever met in pro wrestling, I love Billy more than anybody. He's the most down-to-earth guy. Comes from the Schwarzenegger era, with the guy, his guns were just unbelievable. But he really treated me like a king. Like, hey man, you're the man. You know how Billy is.
Yeah.
And I just loved him. But we had a kind of misunderstanding on the trial thing. But then I realized what he was doing. He was trying to get a hip from Vince, and doing all he needed. He had a bad liver, hip, stuff like that. So I have no problem with Bill. Billy's a great guy. I love him to death. You see him, tell him that. I've been trying to get a hold of him. I tried to get a hold of him through Facebook, and he never...
He just sends his post to his webmaster, and his webmaster posts. He doesn't actually know how to operate Facebook. He's not the most computer literate, but the webmaster posts it, so it's his legitimate, but yeah.
Hey, would you tell him, could you just tell him from me, tell him that Billy Jack said all the best, and I just love him to death. And
yeah.
You know the way I've talked this interview, and I'm pretty straight shooter. I was just one of the guys I love you brought up there.
I'll probably send him this clip of you talking about him. But he really is hard to reach these days because he isn't in good health and he's not able to like keep track of everybody. I don't even talk to him as much as I used to.
Did he have a heart? You said he had a heart.
Just had a heart attack a few weeks ago, about a month ago actually.
Oh God.
So, all right. Well, I guess we'll take the break now.
Thank you very much for lunch.
Oh, no problem. Sorry they didn't have better food for you.
I can't. That's the most I've ate, Hannibal. That's the most I've ate since I've been here. I can't keep nothing down. I'll make sure I got this turned off here. So you got that link okay, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's gonna be great. I mean, great. It is the best video wrestling. Well, you'll see it. I mean, it covers everything and has everything in it. 24 minutes. There we go. Go up now. If we do it, can we do it in Arizona? Or
Oh yeah.
Good. I'd love to see Billy, man. I talked to Honky Tonk Man January, February.
It's closer to fly you to Arizona anyways.
Yeah.
And as I said, I think there's going to be issues in Canada. They're really strict at our border. They don't even let DUIs across without special permission, which is ridiculous.
Well, it's...
That's why I was going to say we could have there's a company I work with in LA, but I don't want to. It doesn't seem like you'll be able to have a match, unfortunately, but maybe we can figure something else out for the future.
Yeah, if I've got, I'm not sure I've got cancer yet in the intestines or the lungs, but the chances, I was told, are about 70-75%. So, and I can't even shit. I mean, I can't. It comes out all water. So, I did.
Well, Billy has those issues too.
Yeah.
One thing we could do that might be interesting sometime down the road is if I'm having a match with someone as my other character, but you come out and everyone thinks because of our past history, you're actually going to help the other guy, but you end up helping me. Because we didn't, it's obvious at the end, I think, of that thing that I wasn't mad at you. Because
I thought it was good leading to this.
Yeah. But as I said, only people that buy that are going to see it, so who knows what, 500 people might buy that? Maybe more over time, but literally thousands of people are going to see this.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons I didn't punch the kid out.
Yeah, you was getting ready to, weren't you? He was irritating me too, man. You talk about bias, my God. He was like doing all my talking for me.
I don't mind being biased, but don't act like I'm the wrestler here. I have to remain protecting myself. I can't have an interviewer.
But you're the only person I would do this with. I mean, and that's why.
Oh, I appreciate it.
On your birthday, that's why I said happy birthday, because I meant it.
Oh, I appreciate it. You're the only wrestler that said that to me, including wrestlers in my company.
Really?
Yeah, there was no wrestler said happy birthday to me, and only about 5 people did. So I appreciate. I didn't even hear it on my birthday because that was my home phone number. So I was actually a little sad on my birthday. I'm like, my God, like you find out who your true friends are, and then I heard your message a few days later. So it meant a lot.
Thanks a lot, man. And let me tell you something too. It meant a lot to me, and I meant it. You know, because my son, 14th, I cried my eyes out because it was the first anniversary. You know, and
yeah. Well, I'm not gonna even ask you about your son because that's better kept personal. That's an unfortunate situation.
Yeah.
I will ask you about this guy before we get into your WWE career. We're back recording now. You brought him up while we were off camera. Mad Dog Bud Sawyer, he's always a popular subject on this channel. Did you have much interaction with him?
Yeah, I did. Buzz and I wrestled in '84 in Florida. He was in Portland wrestling. It was 1982, 83, part of '83. And Matt got in the business with me, the vitamin C business, and it's just I hate bringing up these names, but you know, you got a shoot interview going here, and I'm coming from the heart. And he owed some money, and he ended up paying with his life. And there's been several wrestlers that have done that have paid with their life, and I eventually will be one of them. Yeah.
And Brian Adams, you mentioned that you trained him a little bit in Florida. He went on to be a big name in WWE. Any memories of him, who was better known as Crush, by the way, for anyone that doesn't know?
Yeah, Hannibal. In 1985, I was over with Inoki. I was actually the main event guy with Tonya Inoki on New Japan for about 3-4 tours in '84, '85, and I met him over there in the dojo, and he was really, really good. And I got him booked in Portland, Oregon, not Florida, but I got him booked in Portland Wrestling. Portland Wrestling, he took off like gangbusters. And he stayed there all the way through till '89. And then after I was done with the WWF, I got him booked in the WWF myself. And he wanted, like you said, Crush.
It's Demolition,
and
right?
Demolition, Crush. And then when I was there in '89, I met a guy named Mike Awesome, same thing. Boom, he had his first match with me, and both the guys kind of fed off me. My fault again. You know, I got him in the business that I was in, and it both cost him their lives.
Now, we didn't really get into WWE yet. Who brought you into WWE, and what was your first meeting with Vince McMahon Jr. like?
Well, with me, it was always, is Vince McMahon my half brother or not? And that's my whole life. I mean, I wanted him to be my half brother, not for the money. I could have given a living crap about that. The point is that he always avoided that. So I told you I went down there in '84, went to Chicago, and was there just a couple of days, and he wouldn't give me the time of day on that. And we did some promotion. I was going to come in, and I just left because he wouldn't cooperate with me. And then he did come back later and then say, I wanted to make something for my dad who was blind, and his dad already died, which I thought could have been my dad, Vince Sr. So I went back and said, I'll make something for my blind dad. So I went to WWF '86, '87. And until I left.
You had a very famous backstage fight with Iron Mike Sharpe. What was that all about?
Oddly enough, I've heard you've asked that to a lot of wrestlers. Honky Tonk Man,
Hillbilly Jim said something about it.
I just seen Hillbilly Jim's, and I watched Greg Valentine said something about it.
Yeah.
And the whole thing is that's the way they said it. That's not the way it happened because they weren't there. The only one that was there was Hillbilly Jim. I remember Hillbilly Jim being there, and he didn't say it right either. And he's a great guy, good guy, real good guy. Really liked him. He was not a troublemaker at all. And I was in the ring with Mike. We were in Detroit, Michigan at the I think Hillbilly Jim said Cobo Hall.
Yeah,
we were
at one of those two buildings.
Joe Louis Arena.
Joe Louis, okay.
Joe Louis Arena, and Mike and I were on. It was a TV taping, and we were on like 5th, something like that. It wasn't no main event whatsoever. He was a jobber for me, and he said Vince came in and said, "Look, you guys only got 2 or 3 minutes. Figure it out quick. You guys are going on next." I said, "Mike, why don't you just do this? Why don't you just jump me, beat the shit out of me, and then go adjust your gimmick and then go over that big one, and I'll duck under it and put you in the full Nelson." He goes, "No, hey, I got more experience than you. I'll fucking call it out there." I said, "Mike, we got 2 or 3 minutes." And so he didn't want to do that. We got out there, and we locked up, and he started hammering me in the back of the head. You know, I mean, hammering me, man. And Mike was a real tough guy, you know, and he goes, "No, just go down." I said, "What do you mean go down?" He said, "Go down." I said, "I'm not going down." And he goes, "Vince wants you to go down." So Vince set him on me. He says, "Go down." He was supposed to beat the shit out of me. Because I had gotten in an argument with Vince a couple days earlier, called him a cocksucker and all kinds of stuff, you know. And so anyway, he hit me, and I just put him in the full Nelson and just threw him down. And I think he rolled to the floor, but he got right back up, didn't sell it. And so Blackjack Lanza was there. And when I went outside, I said, "Get your fucking ass back to the dressing room," you know, because I didn't want to do nothing in the ring. We got back in the dressing room, and I told everybody, I said, "You make a squared circle because we're going to fight," me and Mike Sharpe. And Mike Sharpe says, "I've been wanting to try you," because he's a Canadian national champion or something. So he gets in his stance, in his boxing stance, and he started throwing jabs under me, and I'm kind of moving. And then I said, "Mike," and he throws this roundhouse right. He threw the first punch. I did not throw the first punch. So he throws his first punch, and I went under it and caught him with a perfect left hook, dropped him, left him alone. I told him to stay down. He got back up. I grabbed him by the hair, and I hit him with like hockey, about 6 uppercuts in a row, dropped him. He started to get back up like an idiot. I football kicked him with my... At that time, I don't know who it was. I think it was Bob Orton. I'm not sure. I can't say for sure it was Bob Orton, because he may deny it. Somebody jumped on me from the back, and Harley Race took that person by the throat and grabbed him and shoved him up against the wall. At that time, Mike had a pool of blood about like this coming out. I didn't mean to hurt him that bad. I love Mike. It's just shit that happens, Hannibal, in the business. You know what I'm talking about. And it was Vince's fault. But Vince fired me over it. And so I went up to talk to Vince, and I go up to talk to Vince, and Mike's in the office. I didn't even know Mike was in there. At 2 o'clock, I was supposed to be there. I got there a little late, and Mike was up there. And, "Well, you're fired, you know that." I said, "Well, shit, you won't tell me who I am. I wanted to know if you're my brother or not anyway, so go fuck you anyway." And Mike Sharpe goes, no, come back. And Mike went to the hospital after that, and says, "I started the fight. It was me," to Vince. So Mike saved my position, you know. So I was really felt horrible, because it was a pretty brutal beating, man. And when he died, I know he died a little while ago, and I felt bad about that. I don't mean to ever hurt none of the boys. I love the boys, and it's just something that happened, you know.
Was that the only locker room incident you were involved with?
No, I just love the boys. But see, when it's a work, there's a lot of guys that don't want to do jobs, man.
Yeah.
And that's
trust me, I know.
Okay, so you know the business.
Yeah. As a promoter, I know, trying to convince them too.
Yeah, and the whole thing is...
everyone that's watching this, fans always seem to think from the outside, "Oh, you just tell someone a job." No, you gotta... they're laying down for you. Especially if they're a bit of a star. There's really a lot of convincing that goes on a lot of the time, especially in those days.
Yeah, boy, you're right there. And in those days, a $14,000 a week check was common, you know, $14,000 a week. So you wanted to keep your spot. And if you started doing jobs, that $14,000 went down to $7, $8, $6. It's a lot of money. That's per week. And he had to travel all over the world for it. So, you know, I did whatever I was told to do. But a lot of Big John Studd was one, and he's passed away. But you know, this is a shoot interview, and Bundy was there. I didn't verify it, but I'm not sure. But I wrestled with Paul Roma in a tag match, and this is when I was first getting there. And Roma and I went out to do a job, but they wanted me to get over, drop kick both of them, and then tag Roma in. They do the job on Roma, you know, so they saved me because I had just gotten there. And Bundy and Studd were being pushed. Well, I drop kicked Bundy. He had no problem going down. I go to drop kick Studd, and I got really up high, and he just took my legs and spun me around like some. I almost went like this 2 or 3 times before I hit, man. And I hit, and then I kind of crawled over. I tagged in Roma, and then they did their thing. And so Studd's over there looking, and I'm going like this to him, man, in the ring, which I shouldn't have done, but I did, you know, but back in the locker room, you motherfucker, you know. And a lot of times I lost my cool like that.
What did he do afterwards?
Okay, we went back in the locker room, and I immediately was in search of him because I didn't care how big. I didn't care he was Andre the Giant. That was just me, you know. And so he was sitting down, and he was taking his Big John Studd boots off, and I said, "Hey, what's your fucking problem, man? You can't take a drop kick from me?" I said, "I'm 6'3", 280 pounds. I said, are you that big?" And he goes, "Go fuck yourself. I'm 7 foot tall. I'll kick your ass." And all this. So I bitch slapped him, kind of like what you did with Terry Funk, you know, and as hard as I could. And he went down, and he started to get back up, and I did it again. And I said, "Go ahead, come on back up." And he stood there for a while, and then Bundy was there. I don't know if Roma was there or not. He may or may not. You can maybe verify it with him, but Roma can verify the match. I know that. And he did not get up. So we didn't get in a fight. He just left the marks that you left on Funk, you know?
Interesting.
I'm not bragging about it.
So when they brought you into WWE, did they have any character ideas for you, or was it just you're going to be Billy Jack Haynes from Oregon?
I was just going to be Billy Jack Haynes from Oregon. I wanted to be a heel, but I wanted to know really who my biological father was. Lenny Montana or Vince McMahon. I've been sick with that ever since I was molested. But my blind father, I didn't want to hurt him in any way, and he was the only one left, so I had to be secretive about it. So I wanted to make him proud. I went into WWF until I was 86, June. Then I got hurt. I hurt my back versus Harley race. My fault, my bump out. I hit the stairs. Harley come out. If you watch the match, it's on YouTube. January of 1987. January 1987. He comes out and whispers in my ear if I'm okay. It took me about 2 or 3 minutes to get back in the ring. I ruptured a disc in my back. Never had a day off with a ruptured disc. And hey, man, that's just part of the business. Independent contractors, we are not. I don't know where, Vince gets his independency at, but I asked for the day off the next day to go to the hospital, and he said, absolutely not. He said, we don't do that. We don't go to the ER. If you can't wrestle, your spot's done. And I'm not the first guy to say that. There's been a lot of guys say that. If you can't wrestle, you're not going to work. So I got on the pain pills that day with Dr. Zahorian, or some other guys had it for me then. Then I got on it. From then on, I took them every day, and I got to where I got up to a 30, 40 pill a day habit. Nasty. Drug addiction. Being on the road every single day, flying 5 days a week. People think you can just quit, but if they were in my position, you're making $400,000 or $500,000 a year or more, who's going to quit a job like that? And the prestige of the television and all that gets to your head a little bit.
The territories were closing. You had a toy too. I had your toy.
Yeah, there was toys and all kinds of stuff. And then Vince started screwing people on their royalties and stuff, and then all hell was breaking loose with the boys. So.
And you've mentioned to me that you were friends with Harley Race. Do you have any stories about Harley Race you could share with us? He unfortunately passed away this year.
Yeah, Hannibal, I do. Harley, I wrestled him when I was in the NWA in Portland, Oregon, Portland Wrestling, and Florida. And of course there's Ric Flair. These guys are all great champions, Terry Funk, Dory Funk. But the greatest champion of all, who could mix up the match, was Harley Race. I always had the same match with Ric Flair. Ric Flair always wanted to do his woo, be off the top. You're waiting, hold him like this here until he gives you the cue. You hold him like an idiot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whoosh, beat him. Takes a face bump. I'm not putting you down, Rick. All I'm saying, Harley Race could mix up the matches. And I had much better matches with Harley Race, and I think he was the greatest NWA champion ever, and it's a great loss to the industry, his death.
Did you ever experience driving with him? I heard he was a pretty crazy driver.
Yeah, he was. In fact, in Portland, Oregon, Don Owen's son, Barry Owen, we came back from Yakima, Washington, going back to Portland, about a 200-mile drive down I-84 West. And Harley gave me the opposite with his eye because Don Owen's son was green trying to run the towns. And so Harley had a gun. And so we pulled over for a piss call. And so we were all taking a piss, and Harley took the gun out and put the gun behind the head of Barry Owen and said, "You cocksucker, I'll blow your fucking head off," And he pissed his pants. And Harley was just joking around, and he fired a couple rounds in the air and then said, "Come on, you son of a bitch, you're one of the boys." And that was it. He just liked to rib you. They were hard ribs, but you had to take them like a man.
And you mentioned you'd have a beer sometimes with Randy Savage in another interview I did with you. Any thoughts on him?
Randy, I think probably of all the guys I worked with in the WWF, I was so lucky because they hooked me up with Randy Savage. I was supposed to actually wrestle Randy Savage in WrestleMania 3, but Ricky Steamboat went crying to Vince McMahon about, he was there longer than me because we had a big angle work, Randy and I did. I almost won it from Danny Davis, kept interfering. I was supposed to wrestle Randy for the Intercontinental belt. Next thing you know, the next TV, which was only 2.5 months away from WrestleMania, was where you're going to wrestle with Hercules, not Randy. And Randy and I were both pissed off about that. So he had to drop the belt to Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, and I wrestled with Hercules. So I was happy with that. But Randy was probably the best worker. Rick Rude probably second, and Hercules the third of who I ever wrestled there. And they were all great talent, great workers.
What was Randy like outside the ring? We've all heard the stories about his relationship with Elizabeth.
Well, the funny thing about that is I'm the only one that he ever let ride with him in the car. Because Randy see me fight a couple of times in the locker room, so he liked tough guys, and he wanted me so I could ride with him and Elizabeth. And I don't know if Lanny rode with us or not, but I was allowed to ride in the vehicle with him, So it helped me not to get a rental car. I could drive the towns with those guys, And when we flew into other territories, we were there a couple of days, a couple of towns, I loved him.
What did you think about Lanny?
Loved him. Lanny, great guy, man. Great guy. I just seen him yesterday for the first time. This guy comes behind me and grabs me and, at the convention, and it's Lanny Poffo, So hey, yeah, I actually started crying. And I seen Magnum TA and Bill Alfonso, and I told Magnum he's the greatest talent ever, and just the car wreck that he had. These are all emotional for me to go to these here conventions. And
it's like a high school reunion.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Rick Rude was one of your favorite opponents. Any stories about him? We don't hear a lot about him.
Yeah, there is. Rick, unfortunately, went down the same road I went down, and pretty much cost him his life too. And Herc died in the house that was my ex-wife's house. At the time, was my wife's house that he bought. He also passed away. There's a lot of guys that passed away on stuff that we did together. And Vince should really be ashamed of himself on this too, with the drug, with everybody was so hooked on drugs that we'd go to towns. This is no bullshit. We would go to towns, and instead of going to the hotel to go get your room, people would wait. We'd go to the lobby to see what Federal Express package came in. Piper, me, there'd be a lineup. Junkyard Dog, Adrian Adonis, what came in, what drug came in, what Federal Express package came in of drugs sent from Dr. Zahorian's office, and that Vince set, and Linda, both, McMahon. And we'd get them, we'd go back up, and we'd get bottles of Vicodin, Percocet, you name it, we get it from Dr. Zahorian.
Steroids too, I guess.
Oh, steroids up you have big time. And it was like little kids happy. We didn't care about making 10, 14,000 a week. It was, we got that, we were all, by that time, drug addicts. That's why I said Vince was a pimp and we were the prostitutes, because without the pimp, the prostitutes work with the pimp for the drugs. They don't care about the money no more. It's a drug. And I got so sick, that's what I did. And I used to sell coke. I quit selling coke by 87. I already had a lot of money put away in silver dollars at that time, millions of dollars. And I got so hooked on this stuff, it just, now I know what the cocaine did to everybody else. So I deserved it. But
how did it work with Zahorian? Obviously, I guess he was based in Hershey, so were you in a room alone, or was there a big lineup with him at a desk? Like, what was the protocol for requesting the drugs from him?
In Hershey, Pennsylvania?
Yes.
Oh my God, what a joke. I mean, this is where I get sick thinking about Vince. I mean, even if he is my half brother, this is sick how tight, how much of a liar him and his wife both are. Is that there would be a line, and there would not only be a line, you're wrestling probably 3 shows a night. Whoever wasn't on that card had a list you had to pick up too. So there was a line that went around the corner, probably 20, 25 deep, to get in Zahorian's office. He's supposed to be checking your blood pressure, you know, and seeing you're ready, right? He's the commissioner and all that.
Yeah.
And instead, he's selling drugs. Everybody had this huge suitcase.
Would you just say what you wanted, or would you have to say, I got like a sleep issue, could you prescribe me some Valium or something?
He never prescribed me anything, you know, he was not prescribed, he just give it to you.
Oh, you just give it to you?
No, you just buy it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there was a set price on it. And I'd always want Vicodin, or Percocet, whatever he had, and I'd buy sometimes 500 to 1,000 tablets. You know, sometimes they were $1 a piece, $2 a piece. We had plenty of money.
You had a suitcase, or what was it?
I guess he went out there one time, I'd heard, and I believe this, with over $100,000. You know, easy 100,000. And when you add the steroids, probably closer to 200, because it was just once a month. And then what he would send was another, I don't know how many, couple 100,000 a month, at least.
That's what they caught him on too, right? He wasn't even caught what he was giving you because they couldn't track that. Wasn't it like the mail? Wasn't it like a federal offense to send drugs by mail or something like that ultimately?
Yeah, and he sent it to all the boys too. We got it sent to our houses too.
Yeah.
You know, so not just on the road. We were home, we had to have our drugs too. So we got it sent to the home by Zahorian. And there was other doctors too, not just Zahorian. Zahorian got busted. But there was a doctor in Arizona, a neuropath, and another doctor I think in Texas. And but Zahorian's the one that got busted, and Linda got onto it. Linda McMahon caught onto it. And at the last minute, where they were going to go down, where they were being investigating Zahorian, Linda caught onto it, and they cut off their ties with Zahorian, or they should have went down with him anyway, because he got so many wrestlers hooked on drugs, and that's why there were so many drug overdoses. That's not Vince's fault. I mean, Vince knew what we were doing. We couldn't take any time off, so he. Fuck him, man. I mean, it's just quite obvious.
And they would even he would give like speed too, right? Not just normal drugs. I heard Billy Graham mention that.
Oh, even as far as crank speed?
Yeah.
Oh, God, yes, man. Cross tops. I mean, a lot of the guys couldn't sleep on the plane either, so they're up 24, 48, 72 hours straight. And when you did sleep, you didn't really know where you were. A lot of times, me and the boys would go, what fucking town we in?
Yeah.
What town are we in? We didn't even know.
And you team with Ken Patera a little bit. That's a guy I want to get an interview with one day, but how'd you like him? He's very outspoken.
I like him. Yeah, I heard him on the internet. Actually, I was looking up you, and I ran across a Ken Patera stint. He said, he goes, well, how'd you like the tag team with Billy Jack Haynes? I don't know if that was you. Did you ask him the question?
No, I haven't met him yet. Unfortunately, I was supposed to a few years ago, but something happened where it didn't end up happening.
Yeah. Well, he probably come from one of the greatest families of athletes of all time. He could military press 500 in the Olympics.
Yeah.
And his brothers were all in the NFL, the Patera family. But anyway, he'd been drinking a little bit, and boy, he's ornery drunk. And he said, Billy Jack Haynes is a criminal, like that. But I am. So he told the truth.
And what was your reason for actually leaving the WWE when you finally left?
Well, I left the first time to open up the gym. Actually, prior to there was an incident in Arkansas, but
Yeah, I'll ask you that separately.
Okay.
But you know what? You told that gym story on another interview, even though it was also today. Could you tell that gym story again?
the gym story,
Yeah, so we can get it on today.
You bet. It come in September 13th, 1987. I'm going to open a gym in Oregon City, Oregon. I got Hulk Hogan there at the grand opening. I'm going to retire because I am such a junkie as far as drug addiction, painkillers, taking probably 40 a day, that I wanted to get under control and get out of the business. I had about $5, $6, or $7 million in silver dollars, and going to cash them in, and that's it. I was done. Well, Vince calls me 2 days before the grand opening and says he's not going to give me Vince McMahon, or Vince is going to give me Hulk Hogan. And I said, Vince, I've already got almost $250 to $500,000 tied up in the gym and building and all this commercials and stuff. He goes, no, Hulk Hogan's mine. I made him, unless you promise to come back to work after the grand opening and turn heel in WrestleMania 4 at Trump Plaza. And I said, that's the only way? He goes, yep. So I gave my word to him, and my word was my bond back then. And I didn't get my addiction under control. And the grand opening was a huge success. Estimated in the paper, the Oregonian, there was 14,000 people there, and I had over 1,000 members, 25 a month, and then tanning members and all that. I don't know how many. Made a ton of money with Hogan, and so I had to go back to work. And when I did, about the third week.
What was the gym called? Sorry to cut you off. Was it named after you?
Yeah, I wanted to open up the first Gold's Gym, but I listened. It was my own fault. I called the Billy Jack's Gym, but should have never done that. It should have been the first Gold's Gym in Portland, Oregon, or Oregon City. And I probably, it was the name Ego that I had. These are the wrestling. When you're fucked up on drugs like I was, you're not thinking straight. So Gym was a huge success. The third weekend with WWF, I was still taking the drugs, and I overdosed on a plane going into from Detroit to Miami. Demolition can verify. A lot of wrestlers can verify this because they were on that plane. So if you ever get Demolition, ask them about it. But it was Dino Bravo who saved my life on the plane, by the way. I never told you that. I had quit breathing on the plane, and they had me on the floor, and he was just continually beating my chest. And also Rick Rude and Brady Boone were there. And they have both since passed away. Brady Boone was my cousin, and Brady got off the plane with me. Heart was only beating like 15 beats a minute. I was in critical condition. They said, they got me in the ER room, and all I remember, they were shaving my chest. He goes, do you want to be defibbed? You got to sign this paper. So they go, huh? I was like a dream. And so I signed this paper, and then next thing you know, they go, hold still. They put this rubber gum in my mouth, and it went, my whole body shot up like The Exorcist. And I was there overnight, my wife and manager at the gym come and got me I think it was the next day, and I went home. I had to sign a bunch of papers. I stagger home. Vince calls me. What the fuck you doing, man? You're supposed to be in California. You're headlining, because I headline a lot of the cards on the West Coast, because that's where I'm from. And if Hogan wasn't there, they had other guys headlining. And so I had to go out there in Sacramento. I was wrestling Randy Savage, I think. And I was almost dead and had to wrestle. So he did not give a shit about any of the boys, any of the women. I mean, he just had no fucking heart. It's just simple as that. I said, why am I worried about this guy being my half brother? The guy just cares about money. He doesn't care about the boys. Doesn't care about the girls. He cares about money. Now he's a billionaire. That's great. But so hey, I continued and went down and wrestled, and it just got worse and worse for me. I tried to take some time off, couldn't. Got all the way into December, TV in Rochester. You want me to continue with that? In Rochester, TV, this is where it all went down. After TV, Rochester, he come up to my room. Vince did. He wanted to talk about the heel turn. And it was in December. So December, January, February, March, April, WrestleMania. And so it was going to be the full Nelson deal. We're going to start taking everybody out with a full Nelson as a heel, and then take out Hogan prior to it. Then, of course, he beats me in WrestleMania 4. I'm done, get a big payday, I'm out. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. Still high as a kite on Vicodin, so you feel good. And he comes in and has a Corona beer for me and one for him. We're talking. After about 5 minutes, I drinking about half of it. I come back out, drinks a little more. Next thing I know, I'm feeling really weird, you know. And then Pat Patterson comes to the door, Mel comes to the door. There's just like, they had so many gay guys there working. You know, and I'm not gay, and I got nothing against gay people as long as they don't fuck with me.
Terry Garvin was
one. Yeah, Terry Garvin stuck his finger up my ass in the shower, and I said I was going to kill him if he ever touched me again. You know, they were very...
How did that happen?
I was just taking a shower, and he just, not really up it, but, you know, just enough rubbed it.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, you don't do that to a man. And when I seen him, I told him that. I said, you do that again, I'll kill you, man. And he smiled and kept on walking. But Garvin was there, too, Patterson, Mel Phillips. Who's that guy from... There was another guy, Piper was... I can't think of his name. And then Vince, of course. Vince was AC/DC. He went either way. He didn't get.
Piper wasn't there, but he was affiliated with Piper. This guy.
Yeah. Piper knew who he was. The guy had well, you know, about a foot long on him, man. I can't think of the guy's name, man. But he was one of the road agents. And next thing I know, I tried this.
Rene Goulet, maybe.
Not Rene. No, not Rene. Rene. I always got on good with Rene. It wasn't Rene, but you
look like Rene Goulet today with that.
Yeah. Oh God, no. And, no, Rene was okay guy. I wear the hair to hide the scars, you know. But anyway, it doesn't matter.
No.
There was another guy there, another gay promoter that Vince loved to work with, and I got up and I just remember staggering towards the bed. And I woke up about 5 in the morning, which would have been about maybe 5 hours later, 6 hours later. And my boots were off. I was completely naked. My boots were on. My wrestling boots, not tied. Billy Jack hat covering my crotch, and sperm all over my face. So I guess I got the squirt circle jerk or took it up the ass. I don't know what happened. Still don't know to this day, but I was definitely sexually molested. And I stayed with the company only a very short time. I think it was only, I worked maybe 4 or 5 more times. I seen booking sheets that had me on it, and there was no way I was on the card because I was already in Oregon. So the date we could figure out, but I don't really know at this time. But.
And you mentioned you have your hair down because of the blade marks. Can you show us in the camera the blade marks you have?
Yeah, this is my real hair, by the way. You know, but I don't know if you can see him from there. I kind of gigged pretty normal in WWF. Hercules and I had chain matches, and it became a regular thing. And
They put a no blood policy in 1988 too. After you left, that where they didn't really adhere to it that strongly, but you were gone by then, weren't you?
yeah, I was gone the end of '87.
So you bled pretty regularly in your career. Obviously, we see there's got to be at least 100 blade marks there.
Yeah, I was a bleeder. Well, the chain matches, we bled all the time. A lot of times we just hit the same spot, open it back up instead of using the razor blade all the time. And that worked. But then I caught hepatitis C. I don't know how I did it. Probably through the business of bleeding, drinking blood and so forth.
True,
and I know you did.
Yeah.
And we got rid of it.
But I guess, you're having probably hundreds of matches, sometimes double juice, a lot of intermingling of blood, because you never did heroin, right?
No, I never did heroin. I never did coke. I sold it, but I never did it myself, or I'd be dead today.
Yeah.
So I have addicted personality, man, and but I knew better than to sell the product, because I would have went overboard and went down like a lot of the guys did, But
So why don't you tell us about your treatment before we move on, how you ended up getting cured? I know you got your papers right there too.
yeah, I bought the papers. I don't know if you want me to show them or not, but I was just proud because the last time that I talked to you, I had hepatitis C, and we didn't get off to the best of start, but that was more my fault really. And the thing is, you look like my son. You really do. I really think the world of you. I think you're the greatest thing that's ever happened to pro wrestling without kissing your ass. And I'm not an ass kisser, but I am hepatitis free. You're hepatitis free, and blood contract. Vince knew I was the only one that got juice after that, because there was the AIDS thing came out with Rock Hudson in '85. Everybody was afraid of blood. In WrestleMania 3, I'm the only one that bled in WrestleMania 3. I asked Vince, why am I the only fucking one that's got to bleed? And all the fans, if you watch, a lot of them were like leaning back. They didn't want the blood anywhere near them. And so that's what happened there. And I bled pretty good. At first I couldn't get the razor blade out of my wrist because the camera was on me. So I got hardway juice, and then I opened myself up a little bit more with the razor, which the camera showed that too. They zeroed right in as I was cutting myself in WrestleMania 3. So they did a really horrible camera job on that, because I can't watch the cameras and blades at the same time. But that's what happened, Hercules laid them in.
So you had hepatitis C for a while. Why did you put off getting the treatment?
I didn't know I had it until 2009, until I was tested. I never even knew I had it.
Same year as me.
Is that right?
That I found out I had it, yeah.
I did not know that. And when I found out, boy, I tell you, when you find out, I don't know how you did.
WWE medical.
Oh my God! But didn't you just go like, your kind of world collapse? Because that's what it makes you feel like. And my world collapsed, and I was going to see my son, my grandkids for the first time, and found out I had hepatitis C. And I felt I didn't want to touch them. I didn't want to get them infected, anything like that. And it makes you feel dirty. And there was no law in WWF back in my era that you had to be tested. And then I know how you got yours with Abdullah Butcher.
But they didn't even test for it regularly, I don't think, until the 90s. So
yeah,
you wouldn't even know you'd have it unless you had a severe liver issue where your doctor might request a test to see if that was causing the issue. So in the 70s and 80s, all those bloodbath years, you never knew what the other guys had.
That's true. There's probably, I'm sure I'm not the only one that had hepatitis C, because there were so many blade jobs back then. So there's probably a lot of guys, like you said, walking around that have it. And how Vince can say, no blood policy, and it's like, no blood policy, well, how come you're not with the WWE? You should be headlining the WWE, WWF, WWE, AEW.
Well, I am cured now. We're both cured now, so we can get that on the record. But
right.
there is a stigma, and I believe that the stigma about it is what's causing it, but also why a lot of people don't go public about having it. For one thing, they won't get booked, and for another thing, it's associated with like a drug user's disease, even though you can get it if you were in Vietnam. I know Bobby Jagger's had it, who Ivan Koloff as well, Jacques Rougeau, but Bobby Jagger's fought in Vietnam, so he could have picked it up there and brought it here because he was a bleeder too.
Yeah, I didn't know Bobby was with Bobby in '83.
I believe he may have even passed away from it.
You know, he might have. Bobby was a good worker. Hangman Bobby Jaggers, right? Yeah, he wrestled in Portland, blonde hair, beard, the whole thing. And like you say, there's probably 30, 40 guys walking around in that era that had hepatitis and still got it to this day and don't even know it if they haven't been tested. There's 3 million people, I was told when I went with the hepatitis treatment, that walking around right now got it, don't know it.
Now, you went to WCW after WWE, or was it Crockett back then still? What was it? Had it already...
No, Hannibal, I went after the WWE. There was a league in Oregon that I ran called the OWF, and it was a league that I formed myself. And the reason I did it because Vince was coming to Portland. I was trying to block him with the money I had from coming to Portland because I didn't care. I just knew what happened to me, and I didn't want him coming here no more. So I went in a full revolt against him, and there was a commissioner that helped me do that.
Okay.
And but it was ended up being a kind of a dirty thing, and I dropped out. After right after Brody was murdered in Puerto Rico, and that's under very, very suspicious circumstances. You know, Brody. This is what Brody always worked for All Japan Wrestling. He very seldom worked in the States. If he did, he worked in Texas or Puerto Rico. Now, he was supposed to go to work. This is what he told me in '83, I think it was, 85, 84. He's supposed to go to work for WWF and work
with. From Texas. This was when you were in Texas.
Yeah, well, no, this is when I was in Japan.
Oh,
I met him in Japan when I was working for New Japan. He was All Japan. And then he said he's going to go to work for New Japan, and he did for a couple tours. And it was then he told me, you know, I was supposed to work. He told me he's supposed to go to work for Vince, and Vince was so afraid of him, or Hogan was so afraid of him, that Vince paid him off $50,000 a year not to work in the WWF because Hulk Hogan was such a pussy, was afraid to work with him. And if you know Brody, he was a tough guy, and he worked really stiff. And so Hogan didn't want to work with him, and Vince wanted to bring him in, but I guess he was afraid too, so he paid him. Got to where he wanted more money, like $100,000 a month, and he demanded more money. And then he went over to Puerto Rico and got stabbed in '88, July 16th, and then July 16th. And my opinion was that he got gutted there because Vince was involved in it, wanted him completely out of the way. What makes me suspicious of this is because all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they put Cologne in the Hall of Fame, and I think Cologne put pressure on Vince, says, listen, man, either you fucking put me in, or I'll tell you what happened in Puerto Rico to the world that you did it. That's my opinion. Cologne, he was okay, but he was no Hall of Famer. But, come on, man. And all of a sudden they put him in, and
he was known for fucking with people's pay, though. I can say that. He screwed with my pay. He never paid me what he said he was going to pay when I was in Puerto Rico, so I don't doubt that the Colognes owed Brody money.
Yeah, that could be.
Death.
Could be. I mean, I don't know that to be sure. All I know is that he got stabbed, and I think Vince was behind it because of the Hall of Fame. That's just me.
So you got along with Brody and your experiences with him?
I got along with him really good. Yeah. I got along with the tough guys really good, you know. The guys that were trying to fuck you going up, as I had the problem with, you know, the guys were insecure, you know. Do a job tonight, which way you want it done, I'll do it any way you want. That's the business.
You had a lot of matches with Wahoo over the years too, didn't you? He's a pretty tough guy, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, Wahoo, I miss him in '85. I worked with him. He booked Florida after Eddie's death. And we got to know each other real well for quite a while. In fact, we were in Starrcade '85 together against Ole and Arn Anderson. And they wanted Wahoo to do the job there. And that's why I left Crockett's. I said, no, let me do the job. I didn't want him to go out that way. And he said, no, let me do it. I said, no, let me do it. No, let me do it. You know how that goes back and forth. And Ole and Arn ended up being that they wanted Wahoo to do it. And so they did it in a way where it didn't hurt him. But I didn't like that. I just didn't like that. And then Crockett came back and said, anybody upset about their pay, speak now, when he gave the checks to everybody. And no promoter's ever done that. Give checks. All the wrestlers are in this one room in North Carolina and Charlotte, and Jim Crockett comes out and hands everybody a check, which is about 40 wrestlers in there, and then you're supposed to open it up and look at it, and then, what do you got? Well, what do you got? Well, you just don't do that. You're going to start a riot. So I wrestled in the same match as Ole and Arn Anderson and Wahoo. And Wahoo, I asked Wahoo, I said, Wahoo, what'd you get? He said, 3,500. So I opened mine up, I got 25, you know, and I asked Ole and Arn, and they got 35. So I'm the only one that got 25. So he said, but anybody got a problem with their pay? Well, anybody that have a brain, well, if you're that stupid to talk in front of all the wrestlers, I said, yeah, I got a fucking problem. And he goes, well, when we're out here, you can come in the office. So I remember, I think it was Baby Doll and Tully Blanchard. Baby Doll got 8,000 for her Starrcade. 8,000, screaming. I'm going, what the fuck, are you kidding me? We're in pro wrestling to make money, that's why it says pro. So I went back in Crockett's office, and I'm sitting down, and Crockett's on the phone for about 20 minutes, and I'm going like this here, he keeps talking, and I'm looking at him, and I says, I went to what time, come on, let's go, you know? And so Crockett sets his phone down and go, what's your problem? I says, I got 1,000 less than the guys in the same match. That's my problem. Billy, if you don't like it, there's the door. Dusty Rhodes had an office right next to Crockett. Dusty poked his head in. As he pokes his head in and shuts the door, I heard his door shut. I taken all of my might, take the table and smash Crockett back up into the back where a big picture frame fell on his head. I quit that day. Then I tried to open Dusty Rhodes' door up, but it was locked, and I kicked it and called him a pretty bad name. And then I left that day. So yeah, I was known as a high roller. You know, I didn't like it when they fucked me and my money, or lied to me, or screwed some of my buddies. I would just leave because I had money already at home.
Yeah. So they never told you why you got 1,000 less than the others?
No, they wanted me out because there was a jealousy problem, you know.
Okay. You worked with the Barbarian a little bit in your career, right?
Yeah.
What did you think of him?
Excellent.
Did you ever work against Haku?
I think I worked with Haku one time. Excellent, tough.
Did you ever see Haku in action?
Yeah, one time. One time in a bar with Jesse Barr, and they were both drinking I think they were pretty drunk, and he ripped Jesse Barr's eye out. It was actually out of his socket, and he had to go to the hospital and put it back in, but Haku felt so bad about it. I mean, Haku's a tough guy and everything, but he's got a real big heart too, and I remember he started crying about it. He felt bad about it after everything calmed down. So he's a tough guy, but just a big heart too. Small, you know. They're tough.
Jesse Barr started something with Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty in later years. Was he just like a troublemaker when he was drunk?
I don't know. He always treated me good. His dad was Sandy Barr, helped me get into business and everything. Art Barr was.
Did you know Art Barr?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, I helped him a lot. Him and Eddie Guerrero both in '94. Worked a match in Portland, and they were with AAA in Mexico.
Yeah.
And who's that figure skater? Tonya Harding in Portland was on the card as a valet. Got 5,000 in the match just to walk a wrestler to the ring, and we got paid 200. And so the guys weren't happy about that. In fact, I think she fell down in one of her high heels going to the ring.
Was that before or after her incident with Nancy Kerrigan?
It was after. That's why she was so valuable, you know.
Yeah.
The agent goes, "We want $5,000 to be in this wrestling match," and Sandy Barr paid it.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you did go to WCW. How was that, and who brought you in there?
WCW.
That was when you came in, or I guess first before that you were in UWF with Herb Abrams.
Oh, okay. No, UWF was later.
Okay.
Yeah, UWF was later. Now I went to WCW in '84 when I was with Florida Championship Wrestling. We'd fly in every once in a while. We'd fly in. I wrestled with Rick Rude on WTBS, Ted Turner,
Okay.
and then we'd fly right back out, come back to Florida, and we'd be in this Cessna, single engine Cessna that I don't know who owned it. It was Eddie Graham owned it or whoever. And one thing I'll tell you is this rib. Dusty Rhodes was always playing ribs on everybody, because he'd go over too. And there was 5 guys who could fly on a plane, and Dusty would rib you. And so we decided to throw a rib on Dusty. So on the way back or the way to Atlanta, WTBS, we gave a cue for the pilot, who was the older guy, to fake a heart attack. You know, and then the plane to start going descending. And so it was me, Mike Graham, Rick Rude, Dusty Rhodes, and the pilot. And so when we gave the cue, it was like, it says elephant, or I think elephant was the word used. And when we say elephant, the guy goes all of a sudden, and the plane just starts this little nosedive. Dusty was in the front and started freaking out, "Fuck yeah, God!" You know, it was a really pretty dirty rib, really. So when it was so good that we thought he actually had a heart attack.
Yeah.
And so when we landed on the ground, Dusty collapsed. So it wasn't really funny. But anyway, he never ribbed anybody again.
So when was it that you became Black Bart? That was later on?
Black Blood.
Or Black Blood, yeah, sorry.
It's all right. Half the time I didn't know who I was anyway. I was always out of character.
And you were managed by Kevin Sullivan there,
Oh,
who
God.
is a buddy of mine.
Oh, that was great, man. I could really tell you some stories about that one. I came back in '91 as Black Blood, because by that time I had went through all my money, all personal things. I could go to long story, and they started me at a whopping $250 a match, and then on a Saturday I worked there for about 2 months, and on a Saturday I was wrestling, and Ted Turner was there in Philadelphia, and unbelievable, the city we're in now. And I was at, I think it was the Spectrum, and I was wrestling, and I come off the top rope, and I blew my right kneecap up. My kneecap was behind the back of my, and it filled up with hot water through my knee pad about like this. And I told Kevin Sullivan I was done, you know. He knew it. You can actually see it. And I limped back to the dressing room, and Ted Turner was there, and he spent all the money on the surgery. He paid for everything, and he gave me my entire $75,000 contract, because on Monday I was signing a 4-year, I said $200 million by accident, I seen the video, 4-year, $2 million deal, $500,000 a year, and you got paid your entire money with Ted Turner if you got hurt, where Vince would never do that. And so right away he was a much better man than Vince was. He was a man of his word. Goldberg got paid his whole money when he quit. I mean, everybody got paid. He paid me my entire amount of money, 75 grand. I hadn't signed a contract yet, but he paid me 75 grand. Turned it in. Yeah.
For a year, and then they just never brought you back when it was healed.
I just, my knee was really bad. I didn't wrestle again until '95. Went to USWA, you know, made about $1,000 a week there is all, and on the road, good guys. But I wrestled Brad Armstrong my last match. Who's the guy? Jerry Jarrett was supposed to go in and book WWF, and so he told me to come on down to USWA, and I did. Puts this little belt on me, USWA belt. I'm wrestling Brad Armstrong. Great. I don't know why he didn't make it. He really was a great worker, And I wrestled in the Super Bowl of wrestling in Knoxville with Jim Cornette promotion. Did about 8,000 people, and that was my last match. And it was probably the best match I ever had in my life. I just watched it the other day for the very first time against Brad Armstrong. I forgot all about it, and he died. So.
Why did you decide to call it quits then?
Well, because Jerry Jarrett was going to book WWF,
Okay.
and then Hulk Hogan came in and took the books over. Me and Randy went up and talked to him, and he said he wasn't going to book me, so I called him out, and Hogan wouldn't come out. He said he found Christ, grabbed his chain and all that, and Randy didn't like him either. But you look at it, it's a business, and I don't want to come across like I'm some saint and some tough guy that never loses a fight, because believe me, I have had my ass fucking handed to me, man. Big time.
That's what we all have.
Yeah, man, and but it's just, I always say you have to stand up for your rights, and or you're no man at all. And this particular time, I had to with Hogan, and he was just a complete fucking asshole. In fact, I'll tell you the story real quick about the gym, the grand opening of the gym. When Hogan came, he went on a radio show and said that I didn't pay him nothing. No, I didn't pay him no cash. And that's true. He didn't want cash. He wanted a kilo of cocaine. And that's what I got for him.
Yeah, because he's admitted to using that in those days.
That's the truth. And he told me he shared half it with Vince. So Vince also was a cokehead back then. I mean, hey, look, I was a junkie too. But see, Vince doesn't want to say that ever happened in his life, or the boys were never drug addicts. But why is there 127 wrestlers that have died from drug overdoses? Or 87, something like that.
And you mentioned you had some stories about Kevin Sullivan. Anything you could share from when he was managing you, or any other times?
He was just crazy, man. I mean, he just played the gimmick, the crazy gimmick. So one-man gang, and I was in a straitjacket, and I'd come out there as Black Blood, and I just loved it. And Sullivan was just probably the greatest of all time managers. Had his hair all frizzed back, makeup, some kind of devil, But I wasn't there long enough to really enjoy it. I wish I would have been.
And was there ever any contact from WCW in later years during the Attitude Era to bring you back in? Because you still had a name then.
No.
But you didn't really try either, I guess.
No, at that time, I went so far deeply into addiction, and my dad died in '93. My blind father who raised me, when he died, I really blew it. I mean, I went further and further into deeper drug addiction and pain pill.
And let's get into it now. The story of the Arkansas, the kids. I don't remember their names offhand, but the kids that were mysteriously killed, I guess.
Yeah.
And left on the train tracks. From what I gather from it, they were wrapped up in some type of green bag and left on the train tracks. Then the train ran them over. From what I gather, the doctors originally said that they'd overdosed on marijuana and passed out, but it was later found that they maybe only had the equivalent of 2 or 3 joints in their system, and that wouldn't have explained the garbage bag. And then I guess a private investigator who was doing some investigating later was killed mysteriously. So there's a lot of mystery around this death. So what is it that you know about it?
I know all about it. I know all about a lot of contract killings. This particular one, I wasn't involved in. I mean, I didn't kill these 2 kids at all. And the heat got around that I did. And when it did, they really said they were going to come and arrest me in Oregon if I didn't come down and, show up. And I didn't go at first, so I ended up, I was talking to a private investigator a little bit back and forth, and he said he would fly down to Portland, Oregon, and then we'd get a rental car and drive back to Little Rock, Arkansas. So I said, well, yeah, I want to go ahead and clear my conscience anyway, so come on down. I didn't know if they were going to drive me down, stop somewhere, blow my brains out and bury me somewhere, or pull a Jeffrey Epstein, you know. I mean, come on, everybody thinks that Jeffrey Epstein hung himself is insane. He's worth billions of dollars. He's too egotistical. You don't hang yourself when you're a billionaire. And so that's just my opinion. I'm sure a lot of other people's. And so, hey, I did go down, and I ended up taking a couple lie detector tests. It was non-deceptive, passed, you know, wasn't. And I think that
But
saved
for
my
that
life.
night itself, what happened? Like, what was your exact experience that night?
My experience is this. I was contracted to go down there to kill 2 Arkansas State police officers that were stealing drops. They had stole up to $2 to $4 million is what I was told. And so to make that kind of money, I would have done it. I did it. I'm guilty. But that's not the way it happened, you know. There ended up being, I was there at the drop site. The drop landed. Other witnesses said the same thing, corroborated exactly what I said 30 years after. Witnesses came forward and said they seen the kids being beat up by a couple of cops, taken back where the area by the tracks. The drop was right by or near the tracks, maybe 100 feet, 120 feet. Went to the tracks, we're on the tracks using the phone when we seen the kids. Kids took out. The cops took off. The 2 cops that were involved in the drops took out after them, brought them back, and they'd been beaten with flashlights. And they were over the shoulders of the 2 cops. The cops dropped them by the railroad tracks. I was up on the tracks, and I didn't do it, but I was there, so I'm an accomplice. It doesn't make no difference. They took and threw him up on the track. And then I got on the phone and I talked to Bill Clinton. It was at the time he was governor. And so...
So why were the kids were just accidental witnesses? Is that the issue with the kids?
That's right. They were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. I guess they were deer spotlighting. And so I said, these are just young kids. One kid was already dead. One kid was already beaten to death. And Kevin Ives was a kid that was alive, and he said, don't want to leave no witnesses. I said, well, it was a clean drop. I said, there was nothing taken at the drop site. And so I didn't want the kid to get killed, and one of the cops took the butt of the rifle and butted him in the back of the head and split his head. Boom, I just split him right in 2, killed him instantly. Threw him up on the tracks by the hair and the crotch. They were handcuffed behind their back when they came back. And then I was told, and I did, put him between the tracks. I say between the tracks, it's been across, between, I don't know, 30 years ago. But the tracks...
You didn't actually see them put the kids on the tracks?
I helped put the kids on the tracks. No, I was there.
Okay.
I helped. You know, and that what you said was a green tarp. It was a tarp that was put over them so they'd be hidden when the train came by. I guess at 4:30, a train came by and ran over them. And they said they fell asleep because of, like you said, pot. Had nothing to do with pot. You know, they were already dead. They'd been murdered. They didn't move. They tooted the horn. Boom. You know.
So that's why the police weren't killed?
That's why the police weren't killed, because they had nothing to do with it. They lied about it. They were stealing they were stealing from the government. Stealing from Clinton.
So why were you going to kill the police? You said that
because they lied about it. All the guys, the inside cops that were there were the ones that were stealing it. They saw me there and they were freaked out. Who's this guy? Because I was under a mask and gloves. I didn't tell you that. And then I was there with the sheriff, Sheriff Steed and I. So they were wondering, who the hell is this? So they couldn't steal any money that day.
Yeah.
On the drop. And those drops, sometimes there's $2 million in cash and $2 million in coke. It just depends on what they drop. This is in Alexander, Arkansas. So
who was making the drop, though?
The drops were made by, there's drops all over the place. It comes out of Mena, Arkansas, and Colombia, over in Central America.
Yeah.
And it was the Contra era, Iran-Contra, you know.
But where did they drop it?
They dropped it, there was an open field in Alexander's where they dropped it that night.
Yeah.
And they were dropping, I guess the drops were like every 2 weeks, every month, I'm not really sure in Alexander, but they were being stole.
Yeah.
And it wasn't going to happen again. So they were really watching the site. That's when I was there, sent down there, and I was going to beat the 2 guys to death with my bare fist with gloves.
You were sent down there with who?
Clinton. Yeah.
But you didn't.
Governor Clinton.
He talked to you directly.
I talked to him directly.
And hooking you up. So you went down there by yourself?
I went down there by myself after I wrestled King Kong Bundy in Detroit, Michigan. And the guys have tried to say, oh no, he wrestled the 23rd or 22nd. No, I didn't. I did not wrestle. It's not on any card. I didn't wrestle till the 28th because my gym opened the 13th of September. I know exactly what happened. It's documented. Anybody can look it up.
So you were paid to go there to kill whoever was stealing the
That's
drugs.
correct. That's
so
right.
You didn't know if it was police. You didn't know.
I didn't care
who it was.
I didn't care who it was
So
at that time.
You were there by yourself.
Yes.
And then you randomly saw these police.
Yes. Well, I had met him before. I had been down there in '86, and I went to the Rhodes law firm.
Yeah.
And that was it. Rhodes law firm is Hillary Clinton's law firm that she was a part of, partner into. And so I met all the guys, and they were, starstruck a little bit with the wrestling and all that stuff. We wrestled in Little Rock, I think, but very little in Arkansas, Louisville, stuff like that we did, Kentucky.
Still doesn't really ever come to Arkansas.
Yeah, it just very rarely does. But they knew who I was and the muscle and all that stuff. I'd been around the dope game for a long time. 84 is when I first met Clinton in 82.
So did the police that you're saying killed the kids, if they didn't know you were going to be there, how did you come about to help them?
Well, it was a secret for 30 some years. I mean, I was going to open my mouth.
No, but like that night, if you were by yourself and nobody knew you were going to be there other than the person that contracted you, how did you end up helping the police put the kids on the tracks? Because you said nobody came to steal the drop.
Right. No, we went to the tracks after the drop. The drop was made and there was nothing stole.
Okay.
If someone was going to steal the drop, then the cops were going to take the guys back. I wasn't going to do anything.
So the cops were involved with it.
Oh, they were involved with everything.
But they didn't drop you there, right?
No, I was in the Sheriff Steve's patrol car, and I was filming the drop. I didn't tell you that. Filming the drop, and nothing was stole. Everybody got out and said, "Who's this masked guy?" And no one said that. He goes, "He's Bill Clinton's guy." So I went back and forth. They met me and they were all confused, and that's why everybody started going towards the tracks. They wanted to call Clinton up.
Yeah.
And so when we all went to the tracks, got up on top of the tracks, and there was these kids, and there was a gunshot too, and they took off running, and then
Because they did have a gun, but the gun was never recovered that the kids had, right?
The gun they showed it. It was a rifle. It was a rifle shot
for hunting or something.
Yeah, it was never recovered, but I actually seen it myself. Because I've been one to put it alongside.
So you didn't see the kids. The cops, you're saying, ran and got the kids, cuffed them.
I don't know what they did to the kids, except the flashlights were all bloody, and it was very dark, humid. It was August 23rd, so it was very humid, and the flashlights were on the kids, and so you could see the blood was everywhere. And then they just threw them on the tracks, and it was my job to. Well, I had no weapons, so these guys are all armed. Well, I'm going to get shot to death, or I helped them.
To help. Were you paid?
I still got paid $50,000. That was the deal, and I got paid.
Now you're saying all of this publicly. Aren't you concerned either that if the police investigated this or someone investigated this now and your connection came with this, you could go to jail?
Well, you sure go to jail, could be killed very easily. That's why I'm saying there's nothing, you want to go back in a guy's memory. I went and talked to Linda Ives, who I went down there twice. There was nothing like to gain or lose. This has been on the news down there in Arkansas.
Yeah,
ABC.
I saw the news.
I mean,
But why would you come out about it?
conscience, man. Conscience, my conscience. I have a heart. You know, I miss my son. I was a very, very, I've had really a kind of a screwed up life. A lot of it is my own fault. But I would never kill a kid. But I have taken people out, and I've done contracts and broken legs. I've done a lot of bad things, and I'm not afraid to get into that. But I don't want to be the only one that goes down with this. And I admitted that I was there. I even admitted to the names on who was there. I mentioned Clinton, and there's all these other guys I'm on record with. And the reason I said that, because if I don't mention names, okay, they would have killed me instantly. And it said, well, are you scared? Well, have I ever been scared? Fuck no. I've never been scared of nothing in my life. When you're raped at 4 years old, you're scared of nothing. I could take 1,000 showers and not be clean. I still feel something in my butt. That's just the way it is, man. I'm not afraid of nothing. They want to come after me, come after me.
Now, when you mention you've had to perform stuff like such as break someone's leg, is that in a situation where somebody owes money and they didn't pay, and you basically have to send a message so they pay you to do that?
Yeah, and I'm not proud of that fact. I mean, you don't have a conscience, and I never did. My dad was blind, and
steroids really, I bet don't help either if you have a lot of testosterone in you as well.
Yeah, but I did it way before I'd done steroids, so I can't use that for an excuse. It didn't get any worse because I took steroids. It didn't get any better, so the same.
So you're saying you may have actually ended some people's lives over the course of your...
Well, yeah, but the whole thing is this. I feel better about myself. Anybody with a half a brain knows I'm telling the truth. It was Iran-Contra, and a very good friend of mine, Barry Seal, was assassinated on February 19th, 1986. And when that happened, I knew I could go at any time, so I really didn't give a shit anyway. And then I think Clinton ran for president, and he won. So, hey, I've been silent about it. They left me alone, and then finally my conscience caught up with me, and here I am. It's been 2 years ago, 3 years ago. They haven't done nothing yet. If they do, they do. Like Barry Steele said, a contract comes, a contract comes. If it comes, it comes. That's what he said. He got killed. But it's not just the Clinton family. It's the Bush family. It's both. It's the CIA. It's the DEA. We got a crooked system. It doesn't work for the American people. The JFK found that out. 1948, the CIA was built. After World War II, the CIA took over, took control. And then the last president to find that out was Eisenhower, and then Kennedy was assassinated because he wouldn't go to Vietnam. Well, after he was assassinated, LBJ went right to Vietnam. You read Frank Lucas' story, they'd take in the caskets of American soldiers that died, they would take and put in the heroin in the casket underneath the body and bring it back in. That's a true story. So it's a dirty industry. Drugs run, and everybody knows that. It's no secrets.
I'm just going to use the bathroom for 1 second, then I'll finish this up.
Okay,
that was
buddy.
good.
You got it. I'll be dead by Monday.
No, that one I'm going to wait. I'm going to do a good job of editing that clip. That one won't come out right away.
Okay, buddy.
I'll drive you to the airport too, so you don't have to.
You sure?
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
It'll be easier that way for.
Yeah, it's really weird. The private investigator now that come pick me up, he may lose his home, beautiful home over this, because I came forward.
And you did talk to the parent or the mother of one of the kids, right?
Linda Ives, and she's all believes it. Everything is fine. Now there's other woman who was on it who's corrupt. Went back to the county, came back from Houston, and has got her all riled up, thinking that this isn't true. Because what is it that's not true? Why am I going to make up a story like this?
Yeah.
I get killed and there's no money in it.
Shane Douglas said that after he saw a clip of you talking about this story, he actually spent 3 hours researching the story.
Good. I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, he only told me that after I interviewed him the other night.
Really?
Yeah, because he said that I had done any research into that case, and he said he saw a clip of you talking about it, and then he looked into it, and he said that he felt that it's not your reputation on this. What, you know, you had somewhat of a reputation. He said he believed you.
Well, that's good. I got him on the lawsuit. You know, he's on the lawsuit.
Well, we can start talking about the lawsuit right now, and then I'm going to put in a few fan questions on my cell phone. So to just start it off, what's the status of the WWE lawsuit? I know from people I've interviewed that have been involved in it, Butch Reed, who has a lot of respect for you, Road Warrior Animal, Shane Douglas, Sylvain Grenier. Those are the four that come to my mind that are involved in it.
Yeah, there's a lot. You know, Bundy just died. He was involved. And it's a CTE lawsuit. And it's the brain trauma. And what happened was I asked Vince if he'd just pay me $100,000 of the royalties that he owes me, that I won't sue him. And he started laughing on the speakerphone. And I was talking to Howard Finkel. And so I said, you think it's funny, Vince, that all the boys are suffering now? And he seemed to think it was. So I said, well, I'll tell you what, I can't rub two quarters together. I'm going to get a hold of the same attorney that beat the NFL for $1 billion. And then you tell me what you think. And he started laughing. 4 days later, I got a hold of the attorney on the internet. And he called me up. I sent paperwork in, showed him my head trauma from the hospital records, headaches every day, so all the symptoms of it. And he took the case. Name is Bill Kairos. Bill Kairos is the same attorney lawyer that beat the NFL. Now, if he can beat the NFL, he sure as hell can beat Vince. So, but we ended up losing the case after, 2 or 3 years. Then we appealed. Well, the appeal goes to New York. They wanted the appeal to go back to Connecticut because it was corrupt in Connecticut. Well, it didn't go back to Connecticut. In fact, they fired the judge that ruled against the wrestlers because it was so biased. And now it's going back to New York City. And it goes to New York City, then the boys are really going to have a real good shot because it's a Barack Obama lawyer, a labor lawyer. And I'm not into politics, doesn't matter which or. Hey, I think Trump's doing a great job, but hey, if Obama's going to do it for us here, let's do it. And that'll be in, I think, in January, February, and March. The appeals go. I'll be in New York. They're going to fly me up there.
What are your thoughts?
If I'm still alive.
Yeah, I'm sure you will be. What are your thoughts on the Honky Tonk Man?
Actually, the Honky Tonk Man was my idol.
Really?
Yeah. I'll tell you why, Hannibal, is because I watch guys go into their gimmick, and you have to believe in your gimmick. Like I see you got to go into your character, Hannibal, who you are, and you actually go out of your mind if you really want to be a great wrestler has to go into the character deep, and not just you got to be it. But then when you're done with it, you can't take it home. You got to expand out of it, and that's really makes you sick mentally sometimes. Honky Tonk Man, I used to watch him actually turn into Elvis, you know. And I was just man, what's this? I'd watch him and watch him. He'd shake, and then he'd go into this trance, and he played it just so good. And so I got to say, of all gimmicks, Honky Tonk Man is number one in my book.
There's a fan on here saying, what are your thoughts on working with Brian Christopher in Memphis, another guy that had a mysterious death?
Now, did he not, he hang himself?
He hung himself.
I just don't believe these hangings. I guess you can. A lot of guys do, but I wrestled him in USWA in '95, and he was Lawler's son. Couldn't stand Lawler myself. Never did like him. But his son always treated me good, and was sad when I heard about his death. I never had a problem with him at all, except for when I went off in Louisville. That night, I heard him talking to his dad, Jerry Lawler, and I went around the corner, and he was wrestling me for the belt, because I had the belt, USWA, Tuesday in Memphis, and they were saying something about take his knee out or something, take my knee out. So I listened some more, and I was standing right there. I couldn't believe they were talking. I'm standing right there about 10 feet away, but their backs were to me. So I said, hey, fuck this shit, man. So I went outside, and so I rushed the ring. And I wasn't even supposed to be in the ring. And I went out there, and I got on the mic, and as you can see, it says Billy Jack goes off on Louisville, 145,000 hits. I went to the ring myself in civilian clothes. And I grabbed the mic, I grabbed the statue, I broke it, and I started beating the shit out of Mike Christopher with it. Shooting, I was shooting with it. I beat the shit out of him with the trophy. Because he said he's going to take my knee out. And you see Jerry Lawler come to the ring like, he was afraid to get in the ring because I wasn't moving. And finally I went to the floor, and that was the best of Louisville. And everybody thinks that was a work, and I'm telling you it wasn't, it was a shoot.
Why was it you didn't like Lawler?
He's just like the arrogance of the man, you know. He didn't want to do a job. He wasn't business. He would never want to put you over. Egotistical. Not one of the boys. Like young girls. In fact, I think he got in trouble with a 12. When I heard about that, I wanted to just break the guy's neck. In fact, that's why was Sid Vicious or somebody took his place one day. He was supposed to wrestle Lawler, and all of a sudden he called in sick, and I wrestled Sid Vicious. So, hey, Lawler was just a punk and a pussy. I never did like him.
There's a fan on here from Sweden that's wondering what you would consider your greatest match.
God, that's a good question. I think probably Randy Savage, Rick Rude, Hercules Hernandez. Again, could have been the last one with Brad Armstrong at 42. It was my last match ever. And that's on, I just saw it on YouTube on Super Bowl of Wrestling in Knoxville, Tennessee, 95 against Brad Armstrong. And Brad was so good. He's just like you. He's a greatest talent, but you should be in the big leagues right now, but that stupid thing with the hepatitis C, it's just crazy. Well, you're not in the main events in WWE or AEW right now, Hannibal.
And what was Hercules Hernandez like as a person, someone's asking?
Just on a scale of 1 to 10, a 9.9. Just great guy.
Someone's asking, did you get any negative feedback from the Hennig family after you publicly gave your thoughts about Curt Hennig's death in 2006? I guess for people that don't know, what were those thoughts?
Well, you're talking about his death of cocaine intoxication?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because I'm the one who sold him the cocaine, and so I felt really bad about it, and I wasn't, told the truth about it, but I never heard anything from his dad or his sons or anybody. They know he had a cocaine problem, so it wasn't. Listen, I'll take the heat for it because I sold it. But
You were still selling in 2006?
no. But I got him hooked on
Oh,
it.
when you were younger.
He couldn't. He never quit it. He did it for 20-some years.
Yeah.
I gave him his first hits of cocaine, and he got hooked through me for a couple of years. And Buddy Rose too died 2009, cocaine overdose. Adrian Adonis got hooked through me and eventually died. He's doing the toilet and JYD. All these guys that are gone went through me in the 80s. You know, so I got them hooked. So that doesn't make me feel good that they died because they stopped their addiction. I couldn't stop my addiction to pain pills either. Should have killed me. In fact, I wish it would have.
Do you have any memories of Andre the Giant?
Yeah, when he went to court with fathering a child, I think it was in Portland, and he said he didn't do it. And in court, we went to back him up. Buddy Rose, me, and I think Kurt Hennig, and the girl came out that was supposed to be Andre the Giant's kid, and his girlfriend come out first, and the kid came out behind. The kid was bigger than the girlfriend.
Oh, this is when over someone saying that it was his kid?
Yeah, and then the kid was like 5 foot. Was in kindergarten, was like 5'6", and looked just like Andre, you know, and a little bit, you know. And the judge even started laughing. And so.
So you were one of the ones testifying on Andre's behalf?
Didn't get a chance to. It was over before it started, you know.
Did you ever go out with him? I know you weren't much of a partier, but...
I was with him in restaurants when he drank the wine with Dusty Rhodes one time, and he kept burping, and Harley Race, and he kept these big belches. It sounded like guns going off. He's a good guy, great guy. We tried to. What I understand is he backed down to Bad News Brown, though. That's one guy you don't want to mess with. Passed away now.
Yeah, I knew him from my time in Calgary. He was a really nice guy. It's unfortunate he was a mall security guard at the time of his passing. He didn't save his money the greatest. What was the funniest thing that happened to you in the ring that wasn't supposed to happen?
That happened to me?
In a match, someone's asking in general. Could be you in a match, but something that happened during a match that wasn't supposed to happen but was funny.
Well, what was funny was when Wahoo McDaniel and I in '85 was wrestling the Guerrero brothers, Hector and Chavo, Guerrero Sr. And I press slammed Chavo Guerrero, and he was wearing gray trunks. And when he hit, he shit his pants everywhere, you know. And Hector was funny anyway. I mean, you couldn't wrestle the Guerreros. They were great workers, but Hector loved to laugh. And so Hector went all the way to the other corner, and Chavo was trying to tag him, but Hector going, get away from me, because crap was everywhere. The fans were all laughing. Wahoo and I were laughing, and everybody knew you could see he crapped his pants, and so Hector wouldn't tag him in, and it was just a mess. And so there was crap all over the ring, and no one wanted to wrestle, so I think we worked out a little deal on the floor and ran back to the dressing room. That's kind of funny.
Oh yeah, for sure. Someone's asking if you have any funny stories about Stu Hart.
Nothing funny about Stu at all. Stu, he took wrestling serious. In fact, one of my head got rammed through. He put me in the front face lock. He put it on you. You know, you wouldn't volunteer it, but he put it on you and then crank it up, boy. And
I know you can do the impression.
Ooh. And he one of those spots in the basement of my head. I don't know if I signed it or not, though.
Well, actually, I know someone else owns it, but they eventually patched up where all the holes were and replaced it with even harder wood. So by the time I was there, you couldn't break the ceiling anymore, but it was extremely hard because it was just like drywall before, I believe, something like
God.
that. Someone's asking if you have any memories of wrestling in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Well, yeah, I do. Back in 85 or 86, I went down there, and Andy Gibb was doing a concert in San Francisco, 85, 86. And there's another guy that died. He died in 88, and I turned him on to coke in Florida. And I sold him some down there in 85, I think, or 86. And then he ended up overdosing. So San Francisco's always been a turnoff for me, because that's the last time I seen Andy Gibb alive, because I liked him really well. He's a good guy. And he ended up dying in England at 30 or 29, 88.
What do you think about Bret Hart?
You know, there's no question about it. Bret's a great worker and everything. He just, for some reason, I don't think he ever liked me, you know. Dynamite Kid helped train me. He never really got into me down there. But he was a damn good worker. But he lied in his book about me, that's what it was. He said I took some pliers and was in the back seat trying to get cauliflower ears or something in his book. And so I called him out on it. He never even responded back. He lied.
There's other lies in that book as well that I can know for a fact are lies, actually.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's all lies, but there's definitely some stuff in there that's not true, for sure.
I just wish he wouldn't have said that, because it was kind of a turn-off, you know.
Favorite place to wrestle besides Portland?
Madison Square Garden.
Now, this is something we talked about off camera today. Do you still believe Benoit was murdered and everything you said in the RF shoot interview you did years ago?
I would say in my heart of hearts, I believe that homicide occurred the way that they said it did. The reason I said that was because I wanted to get DNA from Vince to see if I was his half-brother. That's the only reason. At that time, I was drugged out of my head. So I think that's probably, no, I don't believe that Vince had anything to do with that. But even there was some kind of weird thing 14 hours prior to it come from his office from internet, but I don't know anything more about that.
Now, this is a question from someone in Canada. Do you use cannabis? Why or why not?
I haven't used cannabis since I was young, so maybe I should start using it.
There's tons of questions on here. What did you think of Owen Hart as the Blue Blazer?
Well, now Owen Hart was probably the best of the Harts, even better than Bret. Now there's one I question, because Bret knocked the Montreal Screwjob, knocked out Vince in the dressing room. Fact, he come out the dressing room wobbly everywhere. He spit in his face. You can see the spit stick right in his eye, because he went to Turner. Well, Owen Hart stayed on, and everybody else left and went to WCW for Turner. And then all of a sudden he falls. Everybody says, well, the cabling broke and all that. I just don't buy that. I just think that the rigging, something was rigged there, and he fell to his death. I could be wrong. I don't know for sure.
Did you ever use the full Nelson in a shoot fight?
No.
I actually, as a bouncer, I saw another bouncer actually throw someone out with a full Nelson once, and I thought it was hilarious because the guy was drunk. It'd be very difficult to get on, I guess. Who was your favorite opponent?
I have probably three. Rick Rude, Randy Savage, and Hercules Hernandez.
And the favorite phase of your career, like what period of time do you think you did your best work?
I think was probably 84, like 30, 40 front cover magazines. I accidentally didn't even know it.
Someone says they wish you a good Thanksgiving. How do you like your turkey, oven roasted or deep fried?
I can't afford one. No, I like deep fried.
What do you think about Bruiser Brody's murder? He already answered this, so I won't get into that. There's a lot of questions on here, guys, that he's already answered, so I'm only going to ask a couple more because he's about to fly out. Is that haircut based off of the movie Kingpin, the bowling movie?
No. Hey, man, I don't know why. I'm probably going to get a haircut when I get home, because I'm going to keep it long in the back and cut it up here. I've always been a little leery of these scars, and that's why I kind of comb it down. But I'm getting so old now, they're wrinkled up. 66. I just decided to let it all hang out, man. I don't got long to live, and that's why I want to come clean with my life.
Best town for ring rats.
I never got into the ring rat thing because my sexual drive and everything was all so screwed up when I was raped at 4 to 8. So that's kind of never got into the ring rat thing at all.
Thoughts on Ole Anderson?
Ole Anderson?
Yeah.
I always got on good with Ole Anderson. I know he was a tough guy and everything, and he got a lot of heat for being tough, but he was never tough at business with me.
What did you think about Dino Bravo's murder? Obviously, he was executed by the mob.
Well, Dino was into the same things I was into, you know, and hey, I'll probably end up with the same fate that Dino ended up with. It's just you play by the drummer, you die by the drummer, and eventually it catches up with you.
What did you think about the Iron Sheik?
Iron Sheik was okay. A little egotistical. I know he was a great wrestler over in Iran. He had to do a job for me once, and he told me, he took me to the side and says, "Billy Jack, I want to tell you I'm the former WWF champion. You're not beating no jabroni here." And I thought that was kind of funny, and so they worked an angle out where Nikolai Volkov. And anyway, I liked him. He just, you know. He wasn't a world champion, but it's all the work, man. It's all the work. But he's okay.
Thoughts on Donald Trump?
Hey, Trump and McMahon are best of friends. But as far as if I had a president, I'd want a guy wearing an American hat right now than anything. So I'm a Trumper.
Who's your favorite wrestling commentator?
Gordon Soley.
Favorite wrestling league that you watch now? I'm going to guess it's Great North Wrestling.
Well, besides Great North Wrestling, it's AEW.
Really?
Yep.
Someone says you mentioned that you might pass away soon. Do you have any fear of dying?
No, absolutely not.
Now, this is an interesting question, but thoughts on the WWE Hall of Fame?
Joke. I mean, I don't put it not because I'm not in it. I could chow wouldn't go in it anyway. But the point is, it's just it's kind of like just a joke to me. You know, the real Hall of Fame, I think, is there's another one in Texas. I'd be honored to be in one day, but what I've done, I don't think I deserve it.
Well, when they put Coco Beware in the WWE Hall of Fame, they set the bar pretty low. I think you're definitely above Coco Beware.
Well, I'm a little taller.
What's your opinion on the success of Jesse the Body Ventura?
I think if you got to go by one wrestler as a pedestal, you got to go by him as the best because he became governor, and he was for the wrestlers in the union after WrestleMania 3, and I was all ready to join it. You know, but before I could even say a word, Hulk Hogan kiboshed it, and Vince. And that's why I'm against the WWE right now and trying to take him down, or at least have him get a union and help the boys.
Best weapon to use in a street fight other than a firearm, in your opinion?
Fist.
Fist. What was your favorite painkiller?
Oh, Vicodin.
Have you seen Orange Cassidy in AEW?
I have not. I have not. I just started watching it.
Okay. Have you heard about this whole Jim Cornette debacle that's happened this weekend, or this week? He's been released from NWA.
You know, I heard a little bit about it yesterday at the convention, but what was it about?
He made a joke about Ethiopians liking fried chicken, and he was forced to resign over it, I guess.
Well, I don't understand what's wrong with that, but they can look at it as racist, I guess. I mean, you can't call racism on everything, man. You just can't do it. When I boxed with mostly black guys, and I got along great with everyone. And I just don't understand why racism is a big play anymore. We had a black president, for God's sake. It's over. Can't keep crying racism all the time, man.
The guy on here says he just wanted to say you were one of his favorite wrestlers. Last two questions, the last one here. Which wrestler was the most forthcoming with information and willing to help you succeed in the business when you first broke in?
Rip the Crippler Oliver in Portland, Oregon, and Dr. D. David Schultz.
Thoughts on Bill Watts?
Hey, listen, I only worked for Bill Watts one time. I came in for Bill and worked with Kamala in 1984, and that was the first job I ever done in wrestling. I wrestled Kamala. We had a great match, and boom, he beat me right in the middle. It's the first real job I ever done, and business the whole way. Got paid $1,000 for it. Watts paid me, and that's business.
Would you consider appearing for a television wrestling company if you made the offer? I know you mentioned on the other video you'd manage me in AEW, but
I'd love to manage you. You know, I'd love to manage you. You're the greatest talent, Hannibal, that's not been picked. So yeah, if AEW would ever go along with that, but some of these things I said about Dusty, you got to take a lot of stuff back. But yeah, I'd love to manage you.
Someone from the Philippines says that the Philippines love you, and yeah, so thanks everyone for the questions. We really appreciate it. He's got to get on his flight soon, so we're cutting it off, but this was a great extended shoot interview. Last fan question, I'll say it because I'm shutting this down. Who would you get to play your part if a movie was made about your life?
Hannibal.
Oh, thank you very much. They'd have to give me a wig. And to close this off, do you want to just say where they can follow you on Twitter?
I got a Twitter account. Right now, on the top of my head, I've got such a splitting headache right now, I can't even think of it. It's BJH.
I'll put it up on the screen.
God, I forgot.
And I'll unblock you from my personal Twitter.
Okay.
I'll search it up and...
Well, will you unblock me?
Yeah,
okay.
And I'll put it up there.
Okay, good.
And any final comments for the fans to close this off?
Yeah, there is. I mean, without the fans, Hannibal, and I'm sure you agree with this. I mean, you go into your gimmick really well, and I used to be a great wrestler without being egotistical is hard to do. To be a great wrestler, to go into your gimmick and then come back to who you are, that is a great wrestler. Not the ego, the part that you can play into the ring and do your business and do a job if you have to, or get over if you have to, but come back into reality and go home to your family, whatever. That's the reality to wrestling. If not, you get lost in the egotism of it. And that's why I got in a lot of fights, because I never had an ego in this business. But a lot of guys did, and you had to set some things straight. Like I said, I was undefeated in locker room fights, but let me tell you, there's a lot of guys that can kick my ass in pro wrestling. I'll admit that right now. I don't want to come across like the toughest guy in the world. Believe me, I'm not. But I just would never back down. It's like you got to stand your ground, or you'll get run over in this business. And that's what I did. Whether that's good or bad, I don't know. But I did that. Obviously, look where I'm at. It probably wasn't good for me.
We'll close it at that. And we didn't do your opening yet, so if you could do the opening. Can we do it one more time and say the Hannibal TV?
Okay.
It's all good.
This is Billy Jack Haynes, professional wrestler. I am going to be doing an interview with the great Hannibal TV in just a few minutes on my wrestling career. Hannibal TV is the greatest YouTube enterprise in the world today in pro wrestling.